Chapter 1158. After scolding Bader, Han Shaoxin felt much better. Now, he was also the special consultant of the Federation and the Church in name, but the grudges from before had not disappeared. He had only suppressed them in his heart. This was the first time he had been rude to the leaders of the three universal civilizations, and it felt pretty good. Seeing this, Urinril took over and said with a serious expression, "Black Star, this is very important. I hope you can put forward a proposal in the association." Han Shao was a little more reserved when dealing with the dynasty ruler, but he still did not give in. He said, "The development union shouldn't be biased. If we act according to your request, your direct members will take action first. Should we stop them? If we do, will you accept mediation? If we treat them differently, won't we still be helping them? Ahem. Anyway, you understand what I mean. I personally have a reason to deal with Modo, and I've told them in advance. It's not going against the United Front, but it's better for the association to remain neutral." He knew what the three universal civilizations were planning. The purpose of the Development Union was to mediate all beyond Grade A conflicts. The three universal civilizations wanted to make an issue of this and turn the association into an indirect third-party ally. If the supercluster used their direct members, they would attack them. If the three universal civilizations used their direct members, they would pretend they did not see anything. This way, the final effect would make people think that the Development Union was still the three universal civilizations' henchmen. Of course, Han Shao could not agree. He was the vice president of the Beyond Grade A Association and an ally supported by the three universal civilizations. His identity was sensitive, and both sides needed him. Therefore, he could not easily take the wrong path. The three universal civilizations had the advantage in terms of direct Beyond Grade so they had no reason to restrict their own advantages. Therefore, they would most likely not agree to the association's way of treating them equally. As expected, after hearing what Han Shao said, the three universal civilizations' leaders rejected this proposal. As rulers, they could not give the association a higher law enforcement authority than them. The ethereal Pope slowly said, "Black Star, let us speak openly. We understand your position very well. The Mecha Empire wants to create opposition, but you're different. You don't want to separate the Beyond Grade as from us, and you don't reject working with us. That's why we have high hopes for you. Therefore, this matter can actually be discussed. Just tell us what you want." "That's right. My goal is to form a more equal cooperative relationship between the Beyond Grade and the advanced civilizations, not to become your vassals. As for the premise of equality, you have to at least loosen most of the shackles on the Beyond Grade, such as the monopoly of class knowledge. Isn't this the deal we proposed before? We used the removal of the knowledge monopoly as a bargaining chip in exchange for the Development Union to deal with the Supercluster Alliance, but you didn't agree. How should I put it? In the eyes of many Beyond Grade, using this to make a deal is no different from blackmailing and compromising. Another goal of the association is to form a united front. We don't want to be forced to continue being involved in faction disputes. Therefore, most people hope that the three universal civilizations will unconditionally loosen the many restrictions, including the knowledge monopoly, and reform the alliance system. After that, we'll be willing to talk about new terms of cooperation. This is a matter of order." Han Shao explained the association's request. The Beyond Grade A United Front was actually the same as a union strike. It was to improve the welfare of the entire class and fight for better treatment for themselves. Therefore, they were quite united before the benefits were in their hands. If we do that, what form of cooperation do you hope to achieve? The ethereal Pope threw the question back. To be honest, the association's opinion is not unified for the time being, but more people suggest to reduce the nature of allies and strengthen the employment relationship. In order to reduce the coercion and increase the freedom, the cooperation will no longer be limited to one company. Also, outside of the employment relationship, we won't suffer any retaliation from faction disputes. Han Shao explained the expectations of the Development Union. There were too many twists and turns in this. The needs of the advanced civilization allies were different from those of the neutral Beyond Grade so it would be difficult to obtain a result that everyone was satisfied with when they had different standpoints. The three leaders shook their heads and did not agree. Neither side was willing to give in, so this meeting could only end without reaching a consensus. Striding out of the reception room, Han Xiao sighed and felt somewhat helpless. As his position in the universe grew higher and higher, the choices he faced every day became more and more critical. Every choice could have a profound impact on his own development. If he was not careful, he would deviate from the path, and it would be difficult to fix. Only by experiencing this personally could he understand the dangers involved. At the same time, after Han Xiao left, the three leaders in the reception room exchanged glances. Looks like there's no need to count on the Development Union to provide any help. Blackstar is really not careless at all. When he received benefits, he had a clear conscience. When we asked for repayment, he also rejected without any shame. His principles are really strong, Bader said. Come on, this isn't our main goal for building momentum for him. Rejection is to be expected. If this little benefit can be used to control a peak beyond grade A, then it's too simple. There's nothing wrong with Blackstar cherishing his reputation, but we can't lose the big picture for small gains. We still need him to act as a link in the future to guide the Development Union. It's just that their request is a little whimsical. The Beyond Grade A group can't be without limits. If we completely remove their shackles, there will definitely be hidden dangers in the future. We don't have the time to deal with it now. Let's continue to put the negotiations aside and observe Blackstar. No matter what, letting him take the position will definitely be better than the Mecha Empire. Under the strong publicity of the three universal civilizations, the award ceremony was broadcasted in various regions of the major star fields, causing widespread discussion among countless galactic residents. Among them, the most talked about one was Han Xiao. Some people felt that Blackstar deserved the Galaxy Medal, while others felt that his contributions were not great enough and could not be compared to the previous Galaxy Medal winners. However, no matter what, the truth could not be changed. Counting Han Xiao's deeds in detail, catching ES God, stopping the disaster, fighting the Mecha Empire, and contributing to the stability of the universe, most people still had a positive attitude. However, the Galactic Society's discussion of the award ceremony did not last for more than a few days before a sudden change attracted the attention of the entire universe. Just a few days after the award ceremony ended, the largest armed conflict to date suddenly broke out in the free competition zone of the fourth exploration phase of the Flickering World. Many organizations attacked multiple planet strongholds without any warning, as if they had planned it beforehand. The free competition zone suddenly fell into chaos. Rumble, rumble. The earth trembled incessantly. Rows of heavy ground combat vehicles that were more than 10 meters tall pushed forward. Everywhere they passed, the forests collapsed, the forts shattered, and the ground defense lines were breached. Countless turrets and traps turned into pieces on the ground. Groups of armored soldiers raised their weapons and fired wildly at the invaders. Hot beams of light shot out from the muzzles, but the agile figures of supers shuttled through the artillery fire, destroying one squad after another and easily tearing apart the defenders' battle line. The soil splashed up from the explosions buried the corpses of the soldiers wrapped in broken armor. The low-altitude vehicles in the sky cooperated with each other and provided firepower support from the high altitude. The cannons on the ships spat out dense tongues of fire and bombarded the protective shields of the fortresses, causing electric arcs and sparks to fly everywhere. The verdant forests were reduced to charred debris under the bombardment, and the buildings collapsed one after another in the bombardment. This was a resource planet located in the middle of the free competition zone. Originally, it was discovered by a vassal star system civilization under the three universal civilizations and built a stronghold there. However, it was suddenly attacked today. The attackers were a large fleet, and their spaceships had the same symbol, a snowflake-shaped emblem with two spears crisscrossing at the bottom. It represented an immortal organization called Northern Battlefront, which had been established not long ago and had not made any big moves in the free competition zone. Who would have thought that they would suddenly attack a planet occupied by a star system civilization without warning? This Northern Battlefront fleet sent out more than 100,000 Grade B players, as well as a large number of battleships and ground combat equipment. Not long after the battle started, the Stronghold's defense forces were completely defeated and could not withstand the Northern Battlefront's attack. An allied player organization like the Northern Battlefront was formed by a large number of guilds, and they had also recruited many independent players who had brought money into the organization. They were very strong and could support a certain scale of galactic war. After all, after surviving in the galaxy for 4 versions, the guilds had accumulated a certain amount of capital. Currently, there were tens of millions of active players in the entire galaxy. The Black Star Corps had recruited more than 10 million people and was already the largest player faction. The remaining people were scattered in various organizations, and their numbers were also large. The Guild Alliance had recruited quite a number of people. There was also a group of players from the 3 universal civilizations in the Stronghold, only 1 or 200 of them. They had no choice but to fight their way out. However, they were quickly drowned by the Northern Battlefront army and could not do anything. A Northern Battlefront battleship hovered high in the sky. In the command room, the leader of the Northern Battlefront looked down at the one-sided battle and smiled with satisfaction. Victory is right in front of us. Quickly finish off the enemy. We still have other strongholds to attack. He was the leader of the Northern Battlefront's many allied guilds and was in charge of operating the organization. His ID was Fire of the North Sea, and he was the president of a large club in Europe. Where are we going next? Another upper echelon of the allied guild asked. We'll attack whoever is closest to us. Sweep all the way. Fire of the North Sea waved his hand in high spirits. The Northern Battlefront communicated with the NPC organizations in the name of the organization and reached an agreement with the Supercluster Alliance. As an agent, they would help the Supercluster Alliance conquer cities. Every time they conquered a stronghold, they would receive additional rewards. Furthermore, they would not have to spend any effort to occupy the planet. The Supercluster Alliance would be in charge of development and provide them with a high share of resources, which was equivalent to an endless stream of funds. At the same time, during the war, the Supercluster Alliance would also provide resource support, material purchase discounts, and other benefits. Not only the Northern Battlefront, but the Galactic Business Alliance, the 5C Alliance, and many other player guild alliances had also reached an agreement with the Supercluster Alliance and temporarily fought for them. The conflict between the 3 universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance was already an open secret. The Supercluster Alliance would not be afraid of the 3 universal civilizations and the Black Star Corps, like the smaller factions in the past. The clubs of the various countries saw an opportunity and started a national war through the battle between the 2 factions. Starting a national war was partly for entertainment, but it was also more for benefits. First, it was to transition from an ordinary organization to a supercluster faction through this channel. Second, it was to recruit more independent players through the war and strengthen the organization. Third, it was to speculate in the war and ask for a share of the various resources. Fourth, it was because of the main storyline mission of the faction war. Fifth, it was to provide outside help for this season's Pro League in advance and alleviate the situation of the Black Star Corps dominating the game. Now that the Supercluster Alliance had made the first move, the Northern Battlefront and the other guild alliances had started to expand the territory of the Supercluster Alliance in the free competition zone, which led to the current situation. Fire of the North Sea opened the star map and looked at the real-time expansion of the Supercluster Alliance's territory in the free competition zone. He clenched his fists excitedly. This is an unprecedented event. The Black Star Corps' advantage in the flickering world is too great. Only if the Supercluster Alliance that we support wins can we turn the tables and obtain the same amount of resources. The same scene played out on many planets in the free competition zone. Apart from the player guild alliances, there were also other private armed organizations fighting for territories for the Supercluster Alliance. About 2,400 planets were invaded on the same day, and they were all resource planets, transportation hubs, or other strategic locations. Up until now, the fourth exploration phase had basically been completed, and the Superstar Cluster Alliance could accurately choose the most valuable targets to attack. All of a sudden, the Supercluster Alliance's territory increased tremendously, firmly occupying the core areas of several star clusters in the free competition zone. With this as their foundation, they started to expand, greedily seizing the planets and strongholds that other organizations had developed, taking a large amount of territory into their hands and starting to build the deep defense line in their strategic blueprint. Facing the sudden attack of the Supercluster Alliance, the entire world was shocked. Galaxy Chronicles, the First World Server War. On February 25th, year 732, the three universal civilizations held a commendation ceremony to give Black Star a galaxy medal. On February 29th, year 732, a large-scale armed invasion occurred in the free competition zone of the Flickering World. The Supercluster Alliance ordered many armed organizations to expand their territory, and this incident became the fuse for the official conflict between the three universal civilizations and them. It also opened the prelude to the First National War, known as the Eve Incident. Chapter 1159. Recently, the weather in Guangzhou suddenly changed. I caught a cold a few days ago, and it was getting better. However, there were many things going on at home before the new year, so I didn't have a good rest. Today, my cold got worse, and I had a fever. I felt dizzy, and my back was strained. The soreness was unbearable, and I felt uncomfortable even when lying down. I really wanted to remove my muscles and tendons to iron them. My lungs had always been bad, and whenever my cough got worse, I was worried that my alveoli would explode. Furthermore, it was really difficult to write a storyline at this stage. According to the outline, the Supercluster Alliance and the World War would be the last in version 40. After that, I would use a few chapters to finish the Pro League before entering the next version update. This would pave the way for the calamity of the Supers or the World Tree War. The general direction was quite clear. However, the problem was that it was very difficult to determine the role of the main character in this current battle. Due to the restrictions of the United Front, there seemed to be very few chances for beyond grade A characters to appear. This wasn't good, and the focus of the description would be off. Furthermore, everyone probably wouldn't like to watch a normal galactic battle without the main character's scenes, so there would be limited meaning in writing it. Thus, I was still thinking about the specific writing method. Should I carefully depict the clash between the players and the two factions, write about the battle between different organizations and different guilds, or just focus on Han Zhao's actions and use the battle between the two factions as a background to quickly pass through? Although the former was more suitable in terms of structure, it was quite bloated. The latter could be reduced to about 100,000 to 200,000 words so that it could enter the later versions as soon as possible. Today, I forced myself to write about 2,000 words, but the effect wasn't good. I deleted all of them after a glance, so I want to take a leave to adjust my state and recuperate. Brothers, you all know that other than the 10 days of rest I had during the 17th National Day, I usually only took a day off. However, this time, I was really sick, and one day really wasn't enough. I had to take another day off. If I was in good condition on the 18th tomorrow, I would definitely write an update. However, if I didn't get better overnight, I would still have to take a break tomorrow. I just didn't know if the hospital would be able to provide transfusions on the weekend tomorrow. Although I live a rough life most of the time, I had to take care of my body when I was sick. I hope brothers can understand. Chapter 1160. Free Competition Zone, Emerald Star Cluster, Planet Rosend. This was a resource planet located in the inner ring of the star cluster. It had long been occupied by a star cluster civilization called Thunderhorn and transformed into a temporary base camp for the exploration army. It was heavily guarded, and a large amount of resources and soldiers were stored there. At this moment, the leaders of the Thunderhorn civilization's exploration army were gathered in the conference room of the headquarters. Two stronghold planets in the middle ring were invaded consecutively by different organizations hired by the Supercluster Alliance. What do you all think? The commander-in-chief pressed his hands on the conference table and scanned the upper echelons with his sharp eyes. Bang! An upper echelon commander with a long, needle-like beard slammed the table, and said angrily, "Is there still a need to discuss? Organize people to attack them immediately. My troops were guarding one of the strongholds, and they were all wiped out. We have to fight back." Another tall and thin officer with a calm temperament stroked the lightning-shaped blue longhorn on his head. This action was similar to a cosmic human stroking his beard, and slowly said, "I think we should wait for the time being. First, the Superstar Cluster Alliance's actions are premeditated and have strategic intentions. Even if we snatch it back, we will be attacked again. Second, because of the Superstar Cluster Alliance's attack, the central area is currently in chaos and is being converted into private land by the Superstar Cluster Alliance. Now, the fourth exploration phase had been completed, and the 4-star clusters in the free competition zone had been divided into regions. A star cluster had dozens of star systems, and according to their location, they were divided into the outer ring, inner ring, middle, and core regions. There were a total of 4 layers. Currently, the main strategic goal of the Supercluster Alliance was to completely control the core and middle ring regions and have a stable base camp. They would then use space teleportation methods like stargates to maintain their supply lines. Although this would lead to them being heavily surrounded, the Supercluster Alliance had no other choice. Their main goal was to attack cities, and guerrilla warfare was not suitable for them. No matter which region they occupied, they would be besieged. Then what do you think we should do? Should we obediently hand over the stronghold and let my people die in vain? The fiery officer with the needle-like beard roared. "Commander-in-Chief?" The calm officer turned around and said, "I think the same as you." The Commander-in-Chief nodded slowly and said, "I agree with waiting. The situation is not clear yet. They've already started fighting. What's there to be unclear about?" The hot-tempered officer shouted. The Commander-in-Chief said patiently, "In this storm, we're not the main characters. The 3 universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance are the main characters, the chess players. Although the 4th phase is called a free competition zone, the organizations that came to mind for money and occupy land are only chess pieces that walked into the chessboard. We can't decide the direction of the overall situation. Therefore, we have to wait for the 3 universal civilizations to react. So, we're counting on the 3 universal civilizations to fight against the Supercluster Alliance on behalf of us." Of course not. The 3 universal civilizations won't get involved so easily. After all, the principle of the free competition zone isn't broken yet. The Supercluster Alliance has recruited so many proxy forces. On one hand, it's to strengthen itself, and on the other hand, it's to hint at the rules of the game. Everyone will compete with their proxy forces. When the 2 armies officially start fighting, the situation will enter a more intense level. Now isn't the time. The calm officer nodded. That's right. Therefore, chess pieces like us are now waiting for the Commander-in-Chief's orders. When the 3 universal civilizations react, it'll be time for us to choose a side. At that time, we won't be fighting alone anymore. We'll immediately have a large number of teammates. The upper echelons of the Thunderhorn Civilization's exploration army nodded. Although they were unwilling to be chess pieces when they chose to enter the free competition zone, it was equivalent to entering the game. This was the rule of the game set by the 3 universal civilizations. If they were not willing to play, they would not be forced to. Of course, there are many benefits. Only those who were willing to be chess pieces could obtain the benefits of the flickering world. Beep, beep, beep. At this time, a virtual screen popped up in the middle of the conference table. On it was an announcement made by the 3 universal civilizations to the entire universe. The bright title jumped into everyone's eyes. Additional regulations for the anti-monopoly plan of the 4th exploration phase of the flickering world. It's here. The Commander-in-Chief's eyes flashed, and he read this announcement with everyone else. They all had a just-as-I-thought expression. The content of this announcement could be summarized into a few points. First, the Eve incident was defined as the beginning of malicious competition and monopoly, believing that the Supercluster Alliance had violated the free exploration regulation. Second, the Supercluster Alliance was ordered to immediately stop its malicious expansion strongly condemning it on behalf of all the civilizations in the universe. Third, if the Supercluster Alliance did not repent and insisted on doing things its own way, they would begin to punish and redistribute the territories occupied by the Supercluster Alliance. In the appendix of the announcement, there were plans to implement the punishment and redistribution. The Red Empire and the other two universal civilizations expressed that they were not willing to personally destroy the free exploration regulation, so they encouraged all the organizations in the free competition zone to attack the Supercluster Alliance and gave them special support based on their contributions. At the same time, in the territory distribution plan, they expressed that they would not take back the planets taken back by the various organizations from the Supercluster Alliance. As for those who helped the Supercluster Alliance, they would take back their territories after the event. In short, they were using methods such as bribery to draw a blank check, asking the various organizations to attack the Supercluster Alliance, and increasing the difficulty for the Supercluster Alliance to recruit agents. They could either choose the three universal civilizations or the Supercluster Alliance. Ordinary organizations did not have a third option. If they all tried to stay neutral and stay away from the storm, the result would be that their territories would be gradually taken over by the Supercluster Alliance. This was also the reason why the three universal civilizations were so confident in carrying out this decision. No one wanted to have the results of their exploration taken away, so no one was willing to be eliminated. If there was really a 1 in 10 million chance that everyone would rather give up their territories than get involved in the storm, the three universal civilizations would send in their regular army, and after defeating the Supercluster Alliance, they would not give out their territories to other organizations. Instead, they would take over their territories and complete the redistribution. As for the third-party beyond Grade A organizations, they would be an exception in this storm. Only they had the capital to stay neutral. The three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance would also avoid the territories occupied by the beyond Grade A organizations to a certain extent. This was the effect of the Development Union. It was already different from how it was in Han Zhao's previous life, and the butterfly effect was starting to show. Of course, the premise was that the beyond grade as would be bystanders. While the organizations under them could take the opportunity to expand, they could not go overboard. There had to be a limit. What an insidious strategy. The commander-in-chief stroked his horn, snorted, and suddenly raised his voice. Organize the fleet and head toward the Central Ring area. The time has come. We now have enough indirect allies. Everyone stood up and saluted in unison. Understood. On the other side, the Black Star Corps' frontline exploration stronghold in the Emerald Star Cluster. The outbreak of the incident last night caused an uproar among the Army players. A large number of players gathered at the frontline exploration stronghold, and the hall was filled with Army players with all kinds of equipment. There was a lot of discussion, and it was noisy. What's going on? I was on a business trip a few days ago and didn't have time to come online. How did the world change so drastically the moment I came back? Are these guild alliances playing with snakes? The Supercluster Alliance wants to unify the free competition zone. How did the Northern Battlefront and the Galactic Business Alliance get in touch with them? I looked at the forums. They seem to have obtained the main storyline war mission from the Supercluster Alliance. But we don't have any related missions. Do we have to choose the Supercluster Alliance for this main storyline? That's not necessarily true. Didn't some big shots analyze the current situation? The three universal civilizations definitely won't let this go. We're in the Black Star Corps, so we should naturally stand on the side of the three universal civilizations. While everyone was discussing, an announcement from the three universal civilizations popped up on the floating screen in the hall, attracting everyone's attention. After browsing through the entire hall, the atmosphere became lively again. Haha, I knew it. With such a big situation, it can't be a one-sided main storyline. So, this is a faction war, and the three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance are opponents on both sides. We're going to have a national war. Countless players were excited. However, after a while, there was still no activity on the interface. Gradually, some people became confused. That's not right. Isn't it a faction war? Why didn't we receive any related main storyline missions? Do we have to take the initiative to trigger it? But who do we find to trigger it? We're members of the army. Maybe we have to wait for the army to make an official announcement before we get a mission? Just as everyone was bewildered, the Philip subroutine on everyone's communicator suddenly jumped out and issued an announcement. Black Star Corps Expedition Order. Due to the conflict between the three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance, the Army has decided to carry out an armed crusade against the Modo Civilization's exploration team. The reason is detailed in the appendix, Kundi Civilization, Collapse/Expand. When attacking the area occupied by the Modo Civilization, you don't have to worry about affecting other supercluster civilizations. If other organizations try to stop us, we can attack them together. Expelling and killing the Modo Civilization is our primary strategic goal. The Army's affiliated organizations can act on their own without deviating from the strategy. As soon as the announcement came out, a mission popped up on the interface of all the Army players at the same time. Start a faction war with the Modo Civilization. Other than the specific requirements, it was no different from the main storyline missions that the Supercluster Alliance players received. Seeing this, many people beamed with joy. That's right. We'll only get a main storyline mission after the Army makes an announcement. So, the Modo Civilization has a grudge with us? Sigh, it's obvious that you didn't read the background story of the version update carefully. The Modo Civilization schemed to make use of a local Kundi civilization in the flickering world and almost wiped them out. They deserve to be beaten up. Countless Army players were excited and could not wait to charge into the middle circle area. However, what they did not know was that the mission they triggered was actually problematic. It was not the main storyline of the battle between the three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance. Normal vassals of the three universal civilizations or mercenaries of the Supercluster Alliance would not specify which civilization they were going to attack. Instead, as long as they helped their own organization expand and kill anyone from the other faction, their mission rating would increase. Although the mission the Army players received was the same, the target was only the Modo Civilization. Because of the United Front, the Black Star Corps and other beyond Grade A organizations could not respond to the call of the Red Empire and take the initiative to get involved. Therefore, normally speaking, the Army players did not have any main storyline missions of the battle between the two factions. Luckily, I'm smart. Looking at the excited reactions of the Army players on the forums, Han Xiao secretly heaved a sigh of relief. As early as when the Development Union requested all members to be neutral, Han Xiao had already realized that the Black Star Corps would most likely not be able to join the main storyline of the battle between the three universal civilizations and the Supercluster Alliance. As the vice president, if he wanted to maintain his position and voice, he had to obey the collective decision of the United Front. He had guessed the consequences of this, so he deliberately left the Modo Civilization as a target to make the three universal civilizations and the Development Union feel that this was a personal grudge. This way, he could legitimately create a war mission and make the Army players think that it was the main storyline. Although the mission target was simpler than the real main storyline, the players could only accept it. Without this fake main storyline, there would definitely be a large number of Army players who had joined not long ago who would be disappointed. In order to participate in the First World Server National War, there would definitely be people who would switch factions. After what he did, the negative impact was minimized. Although the specific mission was different, at least they could enter the National War, which was enough to satisfy the needs of most Army players. At the same time, this could also form a contrast with the other Beyond Grade A organizations. Most Beyond Grade A factions could not participate in the main storyline, but the Black Star Corps had a fake main storyline. This way, it could attract some players from the other factions to switch to the Army. On the other hand, during the National War in his previous life, the players had a lot of room to play freely. To put it nicely, they could move freely, but to put it bluntly, they could fight their own battles. The fake main storyline he created had a strong goal, and the final effect was to unify the power of the tens of millions of players in the Army, concentrate resources on Moto, and have a greater chance of completing the Kundi race leader's last wish mission. This way, this hidden danger was basically solved. United front, Han Xiao mumbled helplessly. Now that the united front had become a new shackle, it could still be maintained for now. However, as this clause affected the interests of more members, there would definitely be problems. The three universal civilizations probably also had plans to destroy the unity of the Beyond Grade as. To be honest, based on the current situation, he felt that the chances of the Development Union reaching an agreement with the three universal civilizations were extremely low. There was a strong conflict of interest between the two sides. On the association side, because of the different needs, the current collective decision was naturally not the best plan. It could only be said that it was a plan that no one strongly opposed. The Development Union wanted the three universal civilizations to unconditionally remove the monopoly of knowledge before talking about other cooperation. In the eyes of the Beyond Grade, as this was a reasonable request because their ultimate knowledges were all obtained through meritorious deeds. They had contributed enough over the years, and they had already gathered enough ultimate knowledges. It was just that they were not allowed to teach them. Only by breaking the monopoly of the three universal civilizations could they remove the shackles of their factions. This way, the association would spread knowledge on its own, so the current and future Beyond Grade as would no longer need to work for the three universal civilizations to obtain ultimate knowledges. After all, most people were not citizens of the three universal civilizations in the first place, so they did not have the responsibility to contribute. This way, if anyone wanted to join the three universal civilizations in the future, they would only be looking for a backer and would no longer be necessary. However, even if Han Xiao used his toes to think, he knew that the chances of the three universal civilizations agreeing to it were extremely low. Unconditionally, even he himself felt that he was dreaming. However, as the vice president, he had the obligation to convey the collective decision. At the same time, he could not represent so many people and make decisions on his own. Therefore, he could only convey the association's intentions truthfully. According to Han Zhao's own thoughts, agreeing to the deal proposed by the three universal civilizations was actually not a bad idea. He would use dealing with the supercluster in exchange for them, removing the monopoly of knowledge. However, most people did not agree. Firstly, they did not want to destroy their original intention. Secondly, they did not want to take the risk and get involved in this storm. Thirdly, they had different standpoints. If the two sides continued to be in a stalemate, Han Xiao could basically conclude that the final result would be that the Beyond Grade A Association could not take it anymore and would start to teach knowledge in private. The three universal civilizations would then take the opportunity to make things difficult for them. Difficult, but luckily, it's not a problem for me. Han Xiao shook his head. Firstly, he had already obtained the ultimate knowledges, so he was actually not that concerned about the problem of the knowledge monopoly. Secondly, he knew where the turning point of this matter was, so he did not care about the problem being exposed now. When the calamity of the supers or the world tree appears, we can break the current situation. Now is far from the time. Speaking of which, I wonder if the Holy Covenant has succeeded. Han Xiao curled his lips. He temporarily threw this thought away, thought for a while, picked up the communicator, and dialed the person's number. In the Supercluster Alliance storm, the Beyond Grade, as who were not direct descendants of the two sides, would not interfere in this storm on the surface, but there would definitely be a very small number of people who would do things in private. Sorokin, who had the backing of the three universal civilizations, would definitely be one of them. The two of them had the same interests, so they might be able to secretly work together this time and beat Moto into a pulp. Furthermore, Han Xiao already had a bold guess about Sorokin's identity. Just nice, I can verify it, Han Xiao thought. Chapter 1161. In the top-floor office of the Limitless Financial Group's branch in the Flickering World, a huge virtual star map floated in the middle of the room, showing the current distribution of the free competition zone. The Supercluster Alliance occupied a large area of the core and middle ring of the four-star clusters. Its territory was dyed red and clearly marked, and it was expanding toward the blue areas that represented the other organizations. Sorokin stood with his hands behind his back, staring at this star map with flickering eyes. This will be the second advanced civilization armed conflict incident that will affect the entire universe after the Crimson Tide. There are business opportunities everywhere. After solving the crisis with Traveler, the Limitless Financial Group turned around and hugged the thighs of Radiance and Ethereal, so they had to contribute in this storm. At the same time, this was a reasonable opportunity to make money from the war. As the head of the financial group, Sorokin naturally would not miss it. During the proxy war phase, the business of selling materials, arms, and other resources can be promoted. Those organizations that are on the side of the three universal civilizations need to replenish their supplies on the spot. This is the first business opportunity, but this is just a small profit. The real profit lies beyond the chessboard, which requires an entrance ticket. I should be able to qualify, Sorokin mumbled to himself, feeling a little excited. If he could grasp the real profit of this incident, the size of the Limitless Financial Group could be increased, and a skyrocketing stock price would not be a dream. Beep beep. While he was fantasizing, his personal communicator rang. It was a call from Blackstar. Seeing the name of the caller, Sorokin's expression changed slightly. Now that he saw Han Zhao's name, his heart would always tremble subconsciously. However, he adjusted his emotions very quickly, put on his signature fake smile, and answered the call. Your Excellency Blackstar, my dear partner, how do you have time to contact me today? I have something to cooperate with you. Han Xiao went straight to the point. The conflict between the three universal civilizations and the supercluster has finally broken out. This is my chance to settle the score with Modo. Everyone knows that I'm going to deal with Modo, and we should have the same interests in this regard, right? Sorokin's eyes sparkled, and he smiled. That's right. Putting aside my relationship with Radiance and Ethereal, Traveler sold me out. I have a score to settle with the Modo civilization behind him. Until now, he still thought that the Modo civilization was the one behind Traveler. He completely believed Han Zhao's lies and blamed the Modo civilization for this. Since we have the same goal this time, there's a basis for cooperation. You are a commercial organization, and it is not suitable for you to participate in armed conflicts. So I need you to provide a large amount of funds and supplies. Is that okay? The Black Star Corps' influence in the flickering world is far greater than mine, yet they still need me to provide war resources. Sorokin raised his brows. The more war materials, the better. Anyway, I don't mind having too much. Han Xiao was not embarrassed at all. Although he was not short on money, spending other people's money to fight a war was definitely more comfortable than spending his own. Sorokin clenched his teeth and cursed in his mind, but the smile on his face did not change. Sure, I'm more than happy to fund the war against the Modo civilization. I'll get the officer to send a list of supplies over later. Just give it to me accordingly. Okay. Sorokin clenched his teeth and smiled. There's another thing. With your foresight, you must be able to see the business opportunity of the second battlefront. Sorokin's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. He asked tentatively, "You mean stop pretending?" The conflict between the three universal civilizations and the supercluster will affect all aspects. Although the free competition zone is a target, the three universal civilizations will not just focus on this. They will definitely open a second battlefront and target the foundations of these supercluster civilizations in the explored universe. They will use political, economic, and other sanctions to pressure them, and there is a huge business opportunity in this. Han Xiao said slowly. The flickering world was the center of the storm, the main stage of the armed conflict. However, there was another battlefront outside the chessboard, which was the three universal civilizations pressuring the supercluster civilization, making the supercluster civilization tired of dealing with them. This would indirectly create an advantage for the free competition zone battlefield, forcing the supercluster civilization to give up as soon as possible. The business opportunity lay in the economic sanctions. Under the targeting of the three universal civilizations, The business world of the supercluster civilization would be shaken, and a large number of enterprises would be unlucky. This would be the opportunity for the other universal tycoons to enter the fray, like a group of sharks that smelled blood, biting off a piece of meat from the supercluster civilization. The Limitless Financial Group was now close to the three universal civilizations, and they were a top tycoon themselves. Naturally, they had the right to enter the fray. Han Xiao had his eyes on this opportunity and was prepared to take a share of the pie. At the same time, this plan was also to better complete the Kundi race mission. The mission required him to cause huge losses to the Modo civilization. Killing the other party's army was one aspect, and destroying the Modo civilization's financial stability and causing huge economic losses was also the direction of the mission requirements. By doing both, the mission success rate would be increased again. Furthermore, the death of the Kundi race leader was still fresh in his mind. From a purely emotional point of view, Han Xiao also wanted to beat Modo up as badly as possible. Sorokin was very unwilling, and he said with a troubled expression, "I haven't decided to intervene yet. Furthermore, you're already a VIP of the three universal civilizations. You can enter the fray even without me. Why do you need to use my channels? Your channels are better." Han Xiao chuckled without blushing at all. His Germinal Financial Group could indeed enter the fray independently, but compared to the Limitless Financial Group, the Germinal Financial Group's business scope was still a little smaller, and it was not as good as the Limitless Financial Group's channels. This way, he could even borrow their strength to develop, so why not? Of course, to Sorokin, this was equivalent to stealing his business. He felt as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed a fly. He could not wait to get his factories to produce punching bags in the image of Black Star and vent his anger on the spot. That's not good. Sorokin was unwilling and wanted to beat around the bush. However, at this moment, Han Zhao's tone changed subtly. Speaking of which, when I was looking up information recently, I found a historical figure that interested me. Sorokin was stunned for a moment. He did not know why Han Xiao suddenly changed the topic and started chatting for no reason. He was confused, but he suppressed the impatience in his heart and pretended to be curious. "Who is it?" Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and stared at Sorokin meaningfully. "Rovel Sisak, a primordial one nicknamed Soul Emperor. I wonder if you've heard of him?" "I've heard of this person. How did he pique your interest?" When I was looking up primordial Esper ability some time ago, I saw an Esper ability entity called Soul Flame and became interested. I looked it up and found out that the last host was this Soul Emperor. It was nothing much at first, but not long after, I happened to meet the current host of Soul Flame and learned a shocking piece of news from him. It turned out that this primordial One Soul Emperor did not die in a war like the information stated. His spirit escaped and hid. Due to the uniqueness of his ability, he might have been alive until now. Furthermore, I found out that his ability is very similar to yours. Don't you think it's amazing? It's just a coincidence. But a primordial one that survived until now. That's quite impressive. I also think it's a coincidence. So, let's get back to the topic. Our cooperation in this matter is actually a win-win plan. Isn't it good to get a bigger share of the pie together? That makes sense. All right, you've convinced me. It's settled then. When the time comes, I'll open up the channels to help the Germinal Financial Group enter. Haha, then I wish us a happy cooperation. I won't disturb you anymore. Okay, happy cooperation. After the communication ended, the smile on Sorokin's face disappeared instantly. Kacha! Sparks flew, and the communicator was crushed into a piece of scrap metal. This guy actually found out about my background. Sorokin's expression was uncertain. Soul Emperor Rovel Sisak. That was his earliest identity. Although he did not reveal anything when he spoke just now, his heart was actually in turmoil. If it were not for Sorokin's strong mental fortitude, and if he had not been mentally prepared to have his identity exposed, his expression would have changed drastically on the spot, and his identity would have been exposed. Sorokin did not believe that Black Star could see through his identity with 100% certainty. He must have made the connection because of some information, so he spoke to test him. So much time had passed, and he had already changed many identities. It It was impossible for the other party to have solid evidence. Purely in terms of identity, even if the other party knew that he was sole emperor, it would not matter. There were no grudges with the identity of sole emperor. Even if there were enemies, they would have long disappeared in the river of history. However, what Sorokin was afraid of was the chain reaction caused by his identity being exposed. If the three universal civilizations and the various beyond grade as knew that he was actually a primordial one who had lived until now, they would definitely be wary and wary. Then, how could he maintain his weak image and continue to pretend to be weak? Furthermore, he was most likely the only primordial one who had survived until now. The three universal civilizations would definitely make a move. Sorokin felt his scalp tingle just thinking about it. Han Xiao had the evidence, so Sorokin could only agree to Han Zhao's suggestion. Although Black Star probably doesn't have any evidence, if he continues to investigate, he might find out all the identities I've used. Sorokin's expression changed slightly. His identity as Sole Emperor was still okay, but his other identities were not so clean. In fact, the tragedy of the Pinnacles incident that wiped out all the Beyond Grade has had his shadow behind it. Although the clues were basically cut off after so many years, if someone found out, the consequences would be unimaginable. He only wanted Black Star to think that the identity of Sole Emperor was enough to blackmail him and stop investigating. Even if I change my identity, there's always the risk of being exposed. Only by getting rid of Black Star can I solve this once and for all. Sorokin's expression was uncertain. Chapter 1162. As soon as the anti-monopoly regulations of the three universal civilizations were announced, the effect was equivalent to war mobilization. The four-star clusters in the free competition zone were immediately stirred up, and all the observing organizations made their choice. A small number of organizations were not willing to be involved in the war, so they reluctantly gave up on the investment that had lasted for years and withdrew from the competition. Most of the organizations were not willing to be eliminated, so a large number of star system and star cluster civilizations and various civilian armed organizations mobilized their forces, standing on the side of the three universal civilizations and fighting the representatives of the supercluster alliance head-on in the inner and middle star clusters. Just like what the various civilizations had predicted, when the fourth phase of territory exploration was completed, the atmosphere of free development would gradually turn into frequent armed robberies. With the outbreak of large-scale conflicts, the flames of war spread rapidly. Under the attention of the entire universe, the free competition zone entered a state of war. The armed forces of a large number of organizations started to block, and the expansion of the Supercluster Alliance was immediately stopped. Countless intense battle lines were drawn in the four-star clusters, and the stronghold planets at the edge of the territory kept repeating the process of losing and then regaining, forming a crisscrossing force distribution map. The Emerald Star Cluster was divided into 14 war zones, most of which were in the inner and middle star clusters. The bridgeheads of the Supercluster Alliance scattered in the outer star clusters were under the most intense siege, and their strongholds connecting to the outside of the star cluster were quickly falling. However, because everyone's goal was to snatch territory, the intensity of the war was controlled, and planet destroyer weapons were banned. Fleet battles and surface battles were the main focus. After all, if a planet was destroyed, there would be no more territory to snatch. Thus, surface combat weapons and supers played an important role. A large-scale war meant the rapid depletion of battleships, ammunition, and weapons. Demand determined the market, giving a large number of financial groups the opportunity to make money. Many financial groups that had expanded their business in the flickering world were selling all kinds of war resources. Orders from the Black Star Army and the Germinal Financial Group were also increasing rapidly. The logistics department's assembly line was fully operational, and ships of arms were transported to the free competition zone. On the other side, under Han Zhao's orders, the armed forces of the army gathered at the frontline exploration strongholds of the army and attacked the Ferdinand star system where the Modo civilization was located. Currently, the Supercluster Alliance's army was still biding its time, and the representative organizations surrounded their territory as the outer line of defense. The Black Star Corps fleet went straight into the defense line, exchanging fire with the representative organizations of the Supercluster Alliance. In the inner ring of the Emerald Star Cluster, a stronghold planet at the edge of the Supercluster Alliance's territory had been taken down by a large armed organization under a supercluster. A main force was temporarily stationed there, and today, this planet was attacked by Black Star's advanced troops. With the surface stronghold as the center, a hemispherical sky-blue energy shield was inverted on the surface, covering an area of tens of millions of kilometers. Above the shield was a fierce space battle. The defense fleet was struggling to resist the attacks of the Black Star Corps fleet. They were being slaughtered and were on the verge of collapse. The rotating rapid-fire turrets of the Black Star Corps warships threw out whip-like light chains, sweeping and lashing in the battlefield, interweaving into a net of light. Along the way, clusters of fireworks lit up from time to time. In the dazzling brilliance that illuminated the universe, silent killing intent was everywhere. The small special guerrilla warships were like agile hummingbirds, swimming in the battlefield with a light cannons crisscrossed. They moved up, down, left, and right, using thrilling maneuvers to avoid the cannons. From time to time, they would shoot out charge cabins to shatter the shields of the enemy warships and bite deep into the armor of the enemy warships, helping the players to land on the enemy warships. The blue tail flames of the rear thrusters of the heavy assault fleet left light marks on the battlefield, shining like meteors. With the support of the powerful dark energy engine, the assault fleet cut through the waves and tore the formation of the enemy defense fleet into pieces, shattering the enemy's cooperative defense line. The Army commander was one of the top mechanics in the universe, and the battleship building technology of the logistics department was also outstanding. The performance and firepower of the battleships of the Army had the advantage. Under the ferocious coverage of the firepower, the dense energy beams penetrated through the defense shield of the stronghold and hit the surface of the blue shield like a storm. Lightning arcs as thick as dragons were created, and spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the shield. The quadrangular, cone-shaped land torpedo missiles left the belly of the ship and descended from the sky, drilling into the ground, trying to penetrate the base's protective shield from the ground. However, the base had also set up defensive measures underground, so they could only see the ground around the protective shield fluctuating and bulging like a planet with pimples. When they expanded to the peak, they suddenly exploded. Countless oil and sand mixed with flames and mushroom clouds rose into the sky, and the shock waves swept along the surface of the ground, blowing up dust like a sandstorm. In the command center of the ground base that was shaking nonstop, the atmosphere was extremely tense. The base commander stared at the durability of the energy shield with an anxious tone. Are the reinforcements not here yet? Commander, the other allied organizations are unwilling to fight the Black Star Corps and have all refused to come to their aid. Only the Moto civilization, which is closest to us, has sent troops and is rushing over through the hyperdrive base station. Damn it, these bastards. Inform all the captains that we must not let the Black Star Corps break through the shield of the base. Once they release a large number of immortals to the surface, we will be finished. Stall their fleet for me. The base commander yelled. Now, the nickname of the players as the Cancer of the Universe had already spread throughout the universe. They were almost the kings of ground warfare. If the battle was maintained in a fleet battle, they could still hold on for a while, but if the immortals broke through the ground defense line, there would only be one result, a one-sided defeat. Facing the Cancer of the Universe that did not fear death, came back from the dead, and disregarded life, no normal soldier would not feel fear. When encountering such an opponent, no matter how many casualties they caused to the enemy, it would be useless. The ground troops had no morale or fighting spirit to speak of. Once they entered a direct battle, it would definitely be a bloody massacre. Not to mention, the Black Star Corps had an army of tens of millions of immortals. Now that they were charging toward the war zone controlled by the Moto civilization, they were like a walking meat grinder. Even most of the agent forces of the Supercluster Alliance hurriedly moved away from the direction of the Black Star Corps because of fear. They did not dare to obstruct the army. Their goal was clear. They were only coming for Moto. No one wanted to waste their forces here. Commander, the energy durability of the base shield has dropped below 20%. 3 energy furnaces have overheated and are expected to break in 11 minutes and 27 seconds. Please give instructions, the operations team leader said in a panicked tone. The base commander looked at the fleet that was retreating, clenched his teeth, and said, "Reserve fleet, prepare to take off at any time and seize air supremacy. Preheat all anti-air turrets and activate all missile silos. As soon as the shield breaks, fire immediately. All mechanized divisions, armored divisions, and supers, get ready for ground combat." A series of orders were issued. The black mass of armored soldiers and vehicles quickly got into position and looked up at the space battlefield. From time to time, the sound of soldiers swallowing nervously could be heard in the communication channel. Amidst the tense atmosphere, time ticked away in the fierce battle. A day felt like a year. Under the horrified gazes of the soldiers in the base, the blue shield above their heads suddenly shattered, exploding into light dust that filled the sky. The next moment, a series of whistling sounds could be heard. Whoosh! Airdrop cabins with shields passed through the interweaving firepower of the empty turrets and crashed into various locations of the base, burning with white smoke. The hatch slid open, and teams of fully armed Grade B players stepped onto the ground and charged toward the ground troops. The rapidly approaching immortals were like devils in the eyes of the base soldiers. They all gathered their courage and charged forward with a roar. Boom! 2 torrents of steel collided on the ground. Grade B was already the backbone of the universe. The moment they came into contact, more than 100,000 players destroyed the defense lines of the armored divisions on the ground like they were dried twigs and smashed through them in a mighty manner. The yellow soil that was swept up by the explosions of vehicles and armors rose into the sky. The waves formed by the players swallowed soldiers one after another, drowning the positions made of steel and flesh, causing huge casualties. It was not that there were no players who were killed, but the troops of the base watched as every player that they killed with all their might was revived on the battlefield the next moment. Their efforts were completely futile. An aura of despair spread in the hearts of every soldier, and the seeds of fear bloomed and condensed into the deepest nightmare. Very soon, the first soldier whose mentality collapsed appeared and fled in panic. This was like a signal, and more soldiers fled in all directions. The entire line collapsed. They're devils. This is a battle that we're bound to lose. Run. I don't want to die for nothing. Desperate cries sounded in the communication channel, and the defense forces of the base quickly collapsed. The base commander wanted to go into battle to boost morale, but a cannon master sniped him with a super long-range concentrated solid energy bullet and turned him into ashes. At this time, a light flashed in space not far from the planet, and the Moto civilization's support fleet appeared at the jump point. Seeing this, they immediately knew that there was nothing they could do. We're too late. They've already been attacked by the cancer of the universe. There's no saving them. Without another word, the captain ordered the fleet to immediately turn around and turn into streams of light to escape. He was very decisive in his cowardice. Bang! Someone slammed the conference table. Tell me, how do we solve the problem of the Black Star Corps? The commander of the Moto civilization's expedition fleet, Roddick, was furious. His roar echoed throughout the conference room. Before the war, due to the Supercluster Alliance's help, the Black Star Corps could not attack the Moto civilization's territory alone. Now that the Supercluster civilizations could not even take care of themselves, it was the best time to act. This was supposed to be the proxy war stage, and the Supercluster civilizations should have stayed put and watched the situation. However, due to the Black Star Corps' attack, only the Moto civilization had to enter the battlefield in advance. They lost the right to watch and became the member in the worst situation among all the Supercluster civilizations. Most of the allies we recruited are unwilling to fight the Black Star Corps head-on, so we can only resist them personally. We can't let them enter our territory. The other supercluster civilizations will more or less provide help. They won't sit back and watch our defense line be broken so easily. Even if they help, their support is limited. They can't lose sight of us. Plus, the Black Star Corps' public goal is very clear. They're only targeting us. The others are also worried that if they interfere too much, they'll drag the Black Star Corps down with them. So they'd rather sacrifice us to stall them. Everyone discussed softly. The atmosphere was gloomy. If it was a normal armed organization, it would not be a big problem. After all, the Moto civilization was a supercluster civilization. Its armed forces were still very strong. However, the intensity of the war was limited. The role of supers was very important, and the immortals of the Black Star Corps were too shameless. Even if they could hold them back for a while, they would not be able to withstand the casualties. This reality made everyone's heart heavy. We can only let the immortals deal with the immortals. We've also recruited many immortal organizations. As long as we give them enough money, maybe we can send them to fight against the Black Star Corps, Lagos suggested. That's the only way now. Letting the normal supers that they had painstakingly cultivated fight against the players was a huge loss. Only the immortals were the most suitable to deal with the immortals. Roddick's expression was gloomy. Unfortunately, it's not a permanent solution. If we want to get out of this situation, we have to let the Black Star Corps retreat. Then what should we do? Should we make peace with the Black Star? That's impossible. Roddick shook his head decisively. Only by killing Black Star himself can the Black Star Corps fall apart. Unfortunately, we can't do that at all. Let's change our direction. As long as we cause some trouble for Black Star so that he doesn't have time to care about us, that's fine too. You have a plan? Not yet. Lagos shook his head. However, I might have a way to deal with Black Star. Chapter 1163. Roddick's eyes flashed, and he said, "Tell me what you think. What weaknesses do you think Black Star has?" Lagos looked around. Hearing this, everyone fell into deep thought. Black Star's strength is shocking, his body is tough, his foundation is huge, and his prestige is top-notch. Roddick's expression was not good. I can't think of any weaknesses. In other words, what does Black Star care about? His army? But we can't shake his foundation. His mother planet? It's heavily protected, and we don't have a chance to attack him. Plus, such a small problem isn't enough to make Black Star worry about himself. His officers? As far as I know, the important members of the Black Star Corps are all equipped with teleportation devices similar to the multi-dimensional sky opening transportation device. It can't be blocked, and it won't work to threaten Black Star. As for the other things, Black Star doesn't seem to care much about them. The more Roddick spoke, the more desperate he became. In his opinion, unless the upper echelons surrounded Black Star without caring about the casualties, there was nothing they could do about him. Lagos shook his head. Black Star is indeed strong, but don't exaggerate too much. Get rid of the shadow in our hearts and re-examine him. There are actually some ways to achieve our goal. We can split it into two routes, direct and indirect. Roddick had a glimmer of hope. In the past few years in the free competition zone, Black Star had become a huge problem for him. He could not wait to ask. Hurry up and tell me. The direct route is very simple. Start with Black Star himself. Although we can't wipe out his physical body, his soul isn't as tough as the indestructible body. Hearing this, Roddick was immediately discouraged. So what? Even if Black Star's mental strength is relatively weak, it's not something we can target. At the very least, only peak beyond graders are qualified. No. Take a look at this file. Lagos swiped the virtual screen with his finger and released a confidential file. Riddick looked over and mumbled to himself. Marwell's project file, project number -023, project name, Soul Swap Twins. What is this? This is a top-secret document sent to me by the upper echelons not long ago. I don't know much about the Marwell project, but according to the description of the upper echelons, this project is one of the secret plans of the civilization to cultivate special talents. As soon as he finished speaking, Everyone nodded one after another, and they weren't surprised, because they coveted the position of the overlord of the three universal civilizations. The supercluster civilizations had always known how to hide their trump cards and had formulated many plans to secretly cultivate special talents. After the tragedy of the Pinnacles, there were even more such plans. Some of the direct beyond grade, as hidden in the secondary dimensions, were the products of different secret cultivation plans. This was considered a semi-public secret among the advanced civilizations. The three universal civilizations also knew about it, but they did not know the details of the various plans. You're saying that these two can deal with Black Star? Roddick expressed strong doubts. That's impossible. These twins aren't even beyond grade as. How can they hurt Black Star? You've also subconsciously misunderstood. Beyond grade as aren't the only ones who can hurt beyond grade as. Although these twins are weak, they're the only ones who can use a special universal treasure. And this universal treasure belongs to the category of space wonders. It has miraculous effects on the soul and has never appeared before. It might work on Black Star. Roddick hesitated for a while before clenching his teeth. Since there's no other way, let's ask the upper echelons to send these twins over to help. What's the other indirect route you mentioned? The indirect route is to target the people around Black Star. Looking at his experience so far, there are very few people he cares about. Among them, his relationship with the Dragon Emperor is more subtle. If something happens to the Dragon Emperor, he might be able to temporarily put down everything he has on hand and restrain the Black Star Corps. Roddick was shocked. Why would the Dragon Emperor be the target? Officers like Hela are heavily protected. In comparison, the Dragon Emperor has a higher chance. Didn't you say that Black Star gave special teleportation devices to the people he cares about? There's no way the Dragon Emperor isn't prepared. How we deal with her? Why I said deal with her, I didn't mean killing her with force. After all, she's a beyond grade A and won't be easy to deal with. Lagos pondered. But think about it. If the Dragon Emperor suddenly has a huge change in personality and commits a heinous crime, Black Star won't turn a blind eye to it, right? You're saying I have two plans. The first is to let the soul swap twins plot against the Dragon Emperor and twist her thoughts. The success rate of this will be higher than dealing with Black Star directly. The second is to find a way to put the Dragon Emperor in a whirlpool and make everyone angry, such as violating the peace treaty and massacring civilians. This way, Black Star will have no choice but to divert his attention. There's no need to talk about the first plan. What about the second plan? It could be framing or baiting the Dragon Emperor into going crazy. According to the data, she has a very obvious weakness. Lagos' eyes flickered. We'll have to plan for the specifics. Hearing this, Roddick's eyes sparkled. This sounds quite reliable. Of all the war zones in the 4-star clusters, the Ferdinand Star System war zone in the Emerald Star Cluster was the most eye-catching. The reason was that the Black Star Corps tore through the outer defense line formed by the proxy organizations and headed straight for the Modo civilization's important territory in the Central Ring area. Although the Black Star Corps said that they were only targeting the Modo civilization, the Army's current actions had already had a huge impact on the overall war situation in the Emerald Star Cluster. The outer defense circle formed by the Supercluster Alliance had a gap opened, with the Black Star Corps' attack direction as the breakthrough point. A large number of organizations on the side of the three universal civilizations chose to follow the Army and try to enter the Modo civilization's territory through the gap, which was one of the central areas of the Supercluster Alliance. The Supercluster Alliance tried to fill the gap, but they could only send reinforcements. No matter how unwilling the proxy organizations were, they had to stop the advance of the three universal civilizations' forces led by the Black Star Corps. The Modo civilization had no choice but to send out a part of their regular army to cooperate with the Northern Battlefront and other player guild alliances to stop the Black Star Corps, barely keeping them on the battlefront between Star Zones 5 and 7. This battlefront had become the whirlpool of war in the Emerald Star Cluster, attracting a large number of armed fleets and turning it into a meat grinder. The Ferdinand Star System's battlefront had become the most intense area of the battle. The war in the flickering world was in full swing, and the three universal civilizations did not stay idle. They issued measures to impose sanctions on all the supercluster civilizations in multiple areas, starting to erode the national strength of the various supercluster civilizations from political, economic, and other aspects so that they could not focus on the war. Therefore, a large number of the Germinal Financial Group's business personnel boarded the fleets returning to the explored universe and headed to the various star fields. In the spaceship Enterprise, the current vice president of the Germinal Financial Group looked out of the window, his eyes reflecting the beautiful exhaust flames of the fleets. Unknowingly, it's been more than 20 years. He touched the mustache on his lips, and a complicated look flashed in his eyes. The scene of him being half-forced by Blackstar was still vivid in his mind. Many years had passed in the blink of an eye, and Enterprise had already turned from a young man with some business talent to a shrewd and experienced middle-aged businessman. His position had also been promoted to CEO. At first, he was unwilling, but later, he took things as they came. Then, for the sake of promotion, he worked hard to improve his performance. Now, he was already used to working for the Army and working hard to obtain benefits for the Army. Every time he thought of the past, Enterprise felt like he was dreaming. He was originally just the head of a small financial group, but he never thought that he would become an important officer under the Blackstar Corps and step onto the top stage of the universe. Seizing the opportunity to shake the economic stability of an advanced civilization, not only earning huge profits, but also influencing the situation of the universe. This was one of the top achievements of a galactic businessman. Those who could do this were all business giants in the universe. If not for Blackstar, this guide, he would probably only be able to make a name for himself in a small pond in a star system. He would not be able to imagine his current life. Speaking of gratitude to Blackstar, there was indeed a little, but Enterprise was more lamenting about how his fate had changed. At this time, the secretary walked in with a virtual document in his hand. Vice President, the Limitless Financial Group has drafted a cooperation agreement and needs your signature. Bring it over. Enterprise stopped thinking, quickly glanced at the terms of the document, and signed his name. He remembered that he had a mission on this trip, cooperating with the Limitless Financial Group to get a share of the economic sanctions was only the surface reason. There were two real missions. One was to focus on attacking Modo in the economic field, and the other was to help the intelligence personnel hide and monitor the movement of the supercluster civilization's resources and army. The lifeline of the Superstar Cluster Alliance in maintaining the war was logistics. If they did not receive a steady stream of support, the troops in the free competition zone would be nothing more than a lone army that was bound to lose. Therefore, the Army commander privately gave him a mission to figure out the transportation lines of these civilizations through the resource movements of the superstar cluster civilizations. As long as he could control or cut off the transportation lines of the Supercluster Alliance, the troops in the free competition zone would just be a bunch of turtles in a jar. After more than 20 years of contact, the image of Han Xiao in his mind was one of foresight. He knew very well that his army commander was setting up a trap, and he was just one of the chess pieces that needed to be placed in the right position. On the other hand, in a Blackstar Corps frontline exploration base, a group of players gathered in a private room. It was crowded and noisy. "We've been here for almost 20 minutes. Why did you call us over? Were you guys also informed by Philip?" "Yeah, I wonder why we're here." Many of the players were discussing. Everyone present had just arrived at the exploration base and was preparing to join the next fleet to attack the Modo civilization. However, when they arrived at the base, they suddenly received a notification from Philip telling them to wait in this room. This situation was usually a sign that a mission was about to be triggered. Not many people rejected it, and most of them came. There were about 2,000 people in the room now. Most of them were veteran players who had joined the army early on, and some were even members of certain Chinese club guilds. Just as everyone was chattering away, a strange sound suddenly rang out in the room. Hum! A virtual projection appeared in front of the crowd, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Many of them widened their eyes in surprise. Blackstar! The projection that appeared in front of everyone was Han Xiao. Han Xiao looked around, looked at the curious faces, and nodded in greeting. Everyone, I'm the one who informed you to come here. You're all veterans who have been with the army for many years. You're all trustworthy. I've chosen you out of everyone. I have a secret mission that I hope you can carry out. Hearing this, everyone present could not help but widen their eyes. We're players who were specially chosen by the army commander. Ah, the scent of a hidden mission. What do you want us to do? A bold player in the crowd shouted excitedly. Han Xiao smiled. I need you all to be spies. Then he issued the secret mission that he had written long ago to the players present. Everyone's eyes lost focus, and they looked like they were looking at the interface. Many foreign clubs had planted spies here, and Han Xiao was prepared to give them a taste of their own medicine. He sent some army players to pretend to join those guild alliances to gather information, while also planting spies in the Modo civilization to investigate the transportation route. For this reason, he would conceal the fact that these players had served in the army and cleanse their identities. This was a piece of cake for a beyond grade of virtual mechanic. Investigating the transportation route was not to completely destroy the Modo civilization's hope, but to better encircle them and attack their reinforcements. He grasped the Modo civilization's determination that they would not give up on the flickering world so easily. As long as they could survive, the Modo civilization would continue to invest troops into this meat grinder. Not only would this satisfy his mission requirements, but it would also keep the Black Star Corps involved. After all, if Modo was gone, the Black Star Corps would have no reason to intervene in the war. This was only one part of his strategy. Han Xiao was secretly planning in many ways, preparing to weave a huge net to cover the Modo civilization and make them the prey on the spider's web. For this, he even secretly contacted an old friend that he had not interacted with for a long time, a dangerous sociopath, a powerful demagogue, and a useful tool in his mind, Rosalind. It was not difficult for him to imagine what kind of changes would occur within the Modo civilization after using such a powerful weapon. Chapter 1164. In a certain star field of the explored universe, on the colonial planet of certain star system civilization, in a rented temporary stronghold, the upper echelons of the Silver Revolutionary Army gathered. Most of them had gloomy expressions. Although the competition in the flickering world has caused the situation of the universe to change, our efficiency in promoting our program is far from what we expected. It can even be said that our progress has stagnated. The current leader of the Silver Revolutionary Army, Edmund, frowned. Originally, the Silver Revolutionary Army had predicted the conflict in the flickering world and wanted to take the opportunity to strengthen their army. However, although the conflict had broken out, spreading their ideology was not as easy as they thought. A bespectacled man pushed his glasses and said, according to the research, the popularity of the 3 universal civilizations in the entire universe is 1174, 1% higher than the prediction of the mathematical model for the same period. In other words, the 3 universal civilizations are more popular than predicted during this period. The turmoil in the flickering world should have allowed the galactic residents to see the 3 universal civilizations' domineering way of maintaining their dominance, but it did not significantly worsen the image of the 3 universal civilizations as predicted. How did that happen? According to calculations, the source of the deviation in reality is the intelligent plague incident that happened not long ago. This disaster caused countless galactic residents to feel fear, and the 3 universal civilizations' response was very timely. It only took them half a year to resolve this extremely threatening universal crisis, allowing the galactic residents to see the execution of the 3 universal civilizations' authority. Thus, the people's hearts were aligned. Black Star played an important role in this. It can be said that if not for Black Star's contribution and the Mecha Empire's ambition attracting hatred, the 3 universal civilizations would have definitely lost a lot of people's support in the conflict in the flickering world. Now, the foundation is very stable. Hearing this, the upper echelons of the Silver Revolutionary Army present could not help but have bitter expressions. The conflict in the flickering world was supposed to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for development. But now, It seemed that this opportunity could no longer reach their expectations. The effect was at least 90% lower than what they had expected. Without this opportunity, everyone suddenly felt that their future was bleak. Many of them cursed their bad luck and blamed the intelligent plague for ruining their plans, causing them to lose the right time and place. What they did not know was that the intelligent plague was an important event for their rise in their previous life, but now, due to the butterfly effect created by Black Star, it became a huge obstacle to their development. Edmund turned to look at the dignified lady leaning on the sofa not far away. "Minter, what do you think?" Everyone looked over anxiously. Although they were all higher-ups, they all knew that Rosalind was their spiritual pillar. Rosalind swirled her wine glass and glanced at everyone with a faint smile. She said nonchalantly, "Since the development is blocked, then let's take it slow. A person's heart is like smoke, and it changes unpredictably. The support now can turn into hostility in the future. Be patient." Someone said hesitantly. "You don't have a way to solve this problem?" Rosalind covered her mouth and laughed. "Huh, do you think that I am omnipotent? The general trend is irresistible. I can only go with the flow and continue to hibernate. What can I change by myself?" With that, Rosalind stood up and walked in front of everyone with a faint smile. "Anyway, it's hard to develop now, so I plan to find some time to do something else. Black Star sent me a message not long ago, saying that he needs me to do something for him." Everyone was shocked. "You're still in contact with Black Star?" Edmund was surprised. "Why not?" Rosalind shrugged nonchalantly. "After all, I was an officer under him for a while, and he didn't stop me from leaving. I owe him a favor." Edmund's expression became serious, and he said with a deep voice, "What we're doing now is going against the 3 universal civilizations." "Who is Black Star?" "He's an important ally of the 3 universal civilizations." "How dare you keep in contact with him?" "To be exact, Black Star contacted me one-sidedly." Rosalind did not care. "Plus, he already knew what we were going to do. He probably thinks we're a joke." Edmund's expression was serious. He paced around the room twice and asked hesitantly, "What does Black Star want you to do?" "He wants me to go to the Moto civilization and use my ability to intensify social conflicts." Rosalind clicked her tongue. "He really trusts my ability." One of the upper echelons of the Silver Revolutionary Army was shocked. "It can't be. Not only did Black Star not expose our actions, he even ordered you to incite social conflicts in an advanced civilization. Isn't he a great man who cares about the civilians?" Rosalind smiled playfully. "How can a man who built such a huge foundation in decades be as kind as the news says? It's just that he knows how to maintain his image and leave the dirty work to others. Now, it's my turn to do the work." Then, without waiting for anyone to answer, she pushed the door open and left the room. Black Star's request to her was to incite internal conflicts in the Moto civilization as much as possible, and she was free to do the rest. Rosalind already had a vague idea of what to do. In her opinion, the Moto civilization was a federation of 3 main races, so it might be very suitable to implant the idea of division. Speaking of which, she originally planned to change the fate of the 3 universal civilizations and see the supercluster civilization as a potential supporter. She did not expect to turn around and change the fate of a supercluster civilization. Rosalind did not mind this. Unlike most of the upper echelons of the Silver Revolution, she did not have the belief that she had to achieve great things. To her, dealing with the 3 universal civilizations or dealing with the supercluster civilization was just a challenge in her eyes. A sociopath like her who only wanted to see the world in chaos did not care about adding another opponent. In an asteroid belt somewhere in the explored universe, the secret base of the Assassin Society. Ding ding dang dang. Hundreds of assassin apprentices in training uniforms were practicing in the open-air training ground. Only the sound of weapons clashing could be heard. On the stands of the training ground, a few mentors stood with their arms crossed, supervising the training of the apprentices. Load Hair stood at the front with an indifferent gaze. It had been about 20 years since Han Shao ordered him to secretly form the Assassin Society. Over the years, he He had left a terrifying record in the black market and secretly recruited many killers and assassins. He was also constantly training new people. Now, the organization had already reached a certain scale. Beep beep. At this time, his communicator suddenly rang. Lodehair glanced at it, turned around, and left. Stop training. Gather everyone, prepare the spaceship, and get ready to depart. The officers put down their hands with curious expressions. Where are we going? Mission to Moto. Lodehair's words were concise, and he disappeared into the tunnel. He was not interested in power at all. He always remembered that the organization he established was a sharp blade hidden in the dark by Black Star, stabbing toward the target that Black Star pointed at. Primeval Star River, in a secret military base in the Moto civilization. Ta-ta-ta! Heavy footsteps sounded in the corridor outside the door, slowly approaching. With a gotcha sound, the door opened with a loud bang. Dazzling light shone in, piercing through the pitch-black darkness. A group of soldiers stood at the door, and only their silhouettes could be seen against the light. The leading officer spoke with an emotionless voice. Soul Swap Twins, we have a mission. As soon as he said that, there was no response, only dead silence. However, the silence did not last long. A rustling sound came from a corner where the light could not reach, and a humanoid figure shrouded in shadow and fog walked out of the darkness. On his shoulder was a figure the size of a baby, also shrouded in shadow. Only a pair of blood-red eyes could be seen on the two of them. It was impossible to tell what species they were. Clearly, they had undergone some kind of mutation, and only their size could tell the difference. These two were the Soul Swap Twins. The one with a normal size was the older one, and the one with a baby-sized body was the younger one. Did Moto allow us to go out again? The younger brother on his shoulder asked. His voice was as hoarse as that of a dying old man. Seeing the two of them, the officer said with a deep voice, Old rules. Come on board with us immediately. You can only use the Soul Swapper when we arrive at the mission location. Humph! Who are we going to deal with this time? The taller one said with a sharp voice, filled with resentment. Black Star. Hearing this name, the twins looked at each other, and an inexplicable fluctuation flashed across their eyes. There was no nervousness in their eyes. Instead, there was a hint of excitement and greed, as if they had suddenly discovered a treasure. This time, the officer took out a magic bead and said, The target this time has a prophecy ability. This magic bead is engraved with a top-tier aura-concealing magic circuit. Wear it on your body, and it can effectively interfere with and mislead the prophecy ability. The other party will not be able to accurately predict the details related to the two of you. After giving out the magic bead, the soldiers immediately walked forward and brought the Soul Swap Twins out of the room. Every soldier's face was tense, and they subconsciously quickened their pace. It was obvious that they wanted to bring the Soul Swap Twins onto the spaceship as soon as possible. Before coming into contact with that space wonder called the Soul Swapper, the Soul Swap Twins were also quite dangerous. They were locked up in prison most of the time. Although the Soul Swap Twins' grade was not high, other people would have more and more hallucinations if they came into contact with them for a long time. Perhaps because of this mutation, the twins were the only ones qualified to use the Soul Swapper. Furthermore, both of them had to be present at the same time to activate this special space wonder-type universal treasure. At the same time, on floating Dragon Island in the Shattered Star Ring, Aesop suddenly raised his head and looked out of the window with shock. The next moment, Aesop closed his eyes and activated his ability. His thoughts seemed to have passed through many dimensions and locked onto the territory of the Moto civilization. The alarm came from the Moto civilization. What did they do? They seem to have used a concealment device. My senses are very blurry, and I can't see the specific possibilities of the future. Aesop frowned, feeling a little uneasy. Chapter 1165. In the Army Commander's office in the Black Star Palace, a bright star map sand table was suspended 1 meter above the ground. The blue light illuminated Han Zhao's face. This star map sand table was a miniature map of the explored universe. 2 areas were lit up. One was the free competition zone of the flickering world, and the other was the Modo civilization's territory in the primeval Star River. In these two areas, there were scattered light spots. Above each light spot floated a portrait or an organization emblem, representing the identity of each light spot. Lothair, Rosalind, Interpius, and so on were among them. Han Shao slowly walked around the sand table, casually pointing the light spots representing Rosalind and Lothair to the Modo civilization's territory. He muttered to himself, "Lothair and Rosalind are already in position. Interpius will be here soon with the Germinal Financial Group." This scene was like a chess player using the star map as the chessboard and the organizations under him as the chess pieces, setting up an encirclement and annihilation against the Modo civilization. Because of the Development Union Agreement, as well as the glorious image the three universal civilizations had deliberately created for him, he could not personally participate. Therefore, outside of the open crossfire in the free competition zone, if he wanted to do something secretly, he would need some people to do the dirty work. This time, Han Shao had formulated an attack plan with the military and economic fields as the core. The direct battle was very simple. Encircle the enemy and exhaust the Modo civilization's armed forces and resources. There was nothing much to say in this regard. The economic field was also the highlight. Taking advantage of the war, sanctions, and other opportunities to shake the Modo civilization's domestic economy, there would definitely be a large number of financial groups and enterprises going bankrupt. His Germinal Financial Group, along with the Limitless Financial Group and other business giants, would enter the fray and hunt these assets, sucking the blood of the Modo civilization. The partners that Han Shao found for the Germinal Financial Group were not limited to the Limitless Financial Group. Now, the Black Star Corps was a huge community of interests, and Han Shao had a lot of connections with the heads of financial groups. He contacted a bunch of people and proposed similar cooperation requests from the two sides of the three universal civilizations and the Black Star Corps. Faced with such a rare opportunity, not many financial groups would refuse to participate in the hunt against the Modo civilization. With his current influence and status, even if he stayed in the Black Star Palace and did not move, he would still be able to leverage a terrifying amount of resources. The chain reaction caused by this might not be able to regress the overall economy of the Modo civilization by many years, but it would most likely hurt their vitality. At the same time, the Germinal Financial Group and its many partners could also make a lot of money from this. This feels more and more like the mastermind behind scenes. Han Shao smiled and pondered. Now, only the last step is left. The surveillance of a shattered star ring is also to find the transportation route. The shattered star ring was connected to the flickering world. If the Supercluster Alliance wanted to send reinforcements and supplies to the flickering world, they would have to pass through the shattered star ring. The shattered star ring was their main backline, and the army had eyes everywhere. As long as they monitored the movements of the Supercluster Alliance's fleet, they would be able to find the transportation route. The Supercluster Alliance definitely knew this and would definitely use all kinds of methods to conceal their fleet. To them, maintaining the concealment of the transportation route was the key to deciding the outcome of the war. Sylvia and Herluz have both been transferred to the flickering world. The person with the highest position in the Shattered Star Ring now is Lagi. I don't trust him. Han Shao shivered and decided to change the person in charge as soon as possible. Hela and Sylvia can't be transferred back for the time being. Nero has already grown up. It's time for him to take on more responsibilities. The Shattered Star Ring was the headquarters of the Black Star Corps, and the position of the Dragon Head had already been stabilized. It was not difficult to monitor the movements of the Supercluster Alliance. Nero could be in charge and train this kid. Nero was at the prime of his life, and he already had the ability. He only lacked some experience. Han Shao had always hoped to nurture Nero into a talent that could take charge of everything. Putting aside their relationship, Nero was also a high-level protagonist-type character with shocking potential. He was worth nurturing as a core member. If he could nurture a better tool than Sylvia, that would be for the best. That way, he would not have to worry about it. After all, Nero was a man and did not have to worry about his hairline. He also had various fatigue resistance and strong liver, so he could be used to death. Right? Aesop is good at finding people. I can ask him to be Nero's temporary assistant. Han Xiao stroked his chin, and this thought flashed through his mind. Having an old man at home was like having a treasure. Getting Aesop to help would not only increase the chances of finding the Supercluster Alliance's transportation route, but it would also allow Aesop to impart his precious life experience to Nero, killing two birds with one stone. However, he did not know if Aesop would be willing to help. The old man had been idling on Floating Dragon for decades, and he should be more than happy to find something for him to do. Beep beep. Just as he was thinking about this, his communicator rang. Han Xiao took a look, and his mouth twitched. Speaking of Aesop, Aesop is here. Did that old man predict that I'm going to look for him again and made a move first? Han Xiao thought to himself and picked up the call. Old man, you knew that I was going to look for you again. I have something else to talk to you about. Aesop did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. I foresee a crisis from the Modo civilization. They might be up to something soon, and it should be directed at you. You have to be careful. They used a concealment device, so I can't get a clear prediction. Oh, got it. Han Xiao nodded and did not find it strange. Since they were already targeting him, the Modo civilization would definitely do something to try and salvage the situation. Even without Aesop's reminder, he knew that the Modo civilization would definitely retaliate. It would not be strange for them to use a concealment device. After all, he still had the identity of a prophet. You'd better be careful. Although I can't get a clear prediction, I have a bad feeling about it, Aesop emphasized. All right, I'll pay attention. Han Xiao quickly recalled the various trump cards that the Modo civilization had exposed in his previous life and guessed the various possibilities that they would use to deal with him. As long as you take it seriously. You said you were looking for me? Aesop changed the topic. Hearing this, Han Xiao then explained his intention of inviting Aesop to show him. Inviting me? I have no objections, but I'll have to ask Ames. If she's not afraid that I'll take the opportunity to run away, then I'm fine with it. Aesop thought about it and did not reject. He had been cooped up in Floating Dragon for decades, and he had also entrusted Ames to Black Star. He had found a good home for his daughter and had nothing to worry about. Therefore, his thrill-seeking soul was itching for action again. I'll find time to talk to her. Han Xiao smiled. Although he had a close relationship with Ames, he still had to politely greet her if he wanted to borrow someone from Floating Dragon. After talking for a while and reaching a consensus, Han Xiao turned off the communicator, sized up the star map sand table, and nodded with satisfaction. This way, the plan was basically complete. He did not need to interfere anymore. He only needed to wait for the chess pieces to act and let things develop according to plan. Han Xiao opened the interface and took a look. More than half of version 4.0 is already over. According to my current experience accumulation efficiency, the experience I've accumulated will be enough for me to reach level 340 and complete the next level of promotion. He had originally accumulated enough experience, but because of the battle with the Mecha Empire, he had converted his experience into awakening points and added close to 10,000 intelligence. Now that some time had passed, his experience was slowly accumulating again. He had already added the God's trait transformation points that the 4 new universal treasures had brought him. Now that his God's trait transformation had reached the 9th level, the bonuses were considerable. As long as he obtained one more God's trait transformation point, he would be able to trigger another substantial enhancement every 5 levels. According to Han Zhao's estimation, when he reached level 340, raised his God's trait transformation mechanic path to level 10 and above, obtained a few powerful talents from the Cunny Race mission, and created some new mechanical universal treasures, he should be able to suppress the Mecha Empire. At that time, even if the Mecha Empire did not provoke him, he would still fight with the Mecha Empire and rewrite the tie record. As the days passed, the battle in the free competition zone became more and more intense. Under a chain reaction, the entire universe was in chaos. The 3 universal civilizations' sanctions on the supercluster civilizations were extremely strong. The supercluster civilizations were all resisting the pressure and there were various negative reactions in their countries. Among them, the Modo civilization's situation was the worst. Not only did they suffer heavy losses from the Black Star Corps in the free competition zone, but their country was also gradually becoming chaotic. Assassinations occurred frequently, and those who were killed were all famous and successful people from all walks of life. This caused the people to panic, and it also seemed like someone was deliberately inciting negative thoughts, causing social conflicts to become more and more intense. At the same time, their economy was also affected to a certain extent. A large number of enterprises went bankrupt, and a large number of people lost their jobs. Even if the supercluster civilizations were large and powerful, it was impossible for them not to suffer losses after being robbed by a large group of galactic financial groups. If it were any other time, with the power of the Black Star Corps, it would be impossible for the Modo civilization to be in such a sorry state. However, the three universal civilizations were the main force of the sanctions, and the Modo civilization was in a terrible state. This environment provided Han Xiao with the best opportunity to cause trouble. In just 3 months, the Supercluster Alliance had tasted the taste of deep water. However, without caring about the cost, the overall war in the free competition zone actually gained some advantages, except for the war zone where the Modo civilization was located. One day, 3 months after the conflict between the two sides officially broke out, a fleet without the symbol of an organization arrived in the Shattered Star Ring through the Interstar Field Stargate. It was the secret fleet that was specially sent to transport the Soul Swap twins. Happy New Year, all the best. Chapter 1166. In the current universe, the conflict in the flickering world was seen as the Superstar Cluster Alliance's first resistance to the hegemony of the three universal civilizations. After a few months of fermenting, the Galactic Society gave this event an official name, the Flickering War. For the Flickering War, the Supercluster Alliance had been preparing for decades. During the first to third exploration phases, they had constantly sent stowaways into the star field to build secret stargates. Previously, when the three universal civilizations were busy dealing with the intelligent plague, the Supercluster Alliance had been secretly preparing war resources, avoiding eyes and ears, building hidden warehouses in different desolate universe belts, and even building secret military communication networks. Now, all the hidden hands were connected. The Supercluster Alliance had built secret transportation networks to transport blood to the flickering world, and the secret troops that transported the Soul Swap twins had arrived at the Shattered Star Ring through a secret stargate. They did not leave any records in public stargates. In the temporary detention room of the main ship, the Modo civilization's expedition fleet overseer Lagos was communicating with the Soul Swap twins and giving them the mission. Your mission target is Aesop Herrick, the adoptive father of the Dragon Emperor and the current special consultant of the Black Star Corps. Didn't the higher-ups send us here to deal with Black Star? Why did they change targets? The older brother of the Soul Swap twins asked. This is the plan to deal with Black Star. Aesop is a key figure. He's very important to the Dragon Emperor, and Black Star has a special relationship with the Dragon Emperor. We can use this method to make Black Star shift his attention away from us and withdraw the Black Star Corps. Lagos said with a deep voice. Over the past few months, he and the upper echelons of the exploration army had analyzed the pros and cons time and time again before finally choosing the indirect route. This battle plan had been approved by the General Staff. According to Modo's current situation, if they wanted Black Star to stop, they would have to make Black Star fall into another whirlpool. The Modo civilization also knew of Aesop's name. This long-lived species had extremely strong prophecy abilities and was very difficult to deal with. However, in comparison, directly dealing with a beyond grade, it was more difficult, so the success rate of dealing with Aesop was relatively higher. Furthermore, it was precisely because Aesop's prophecies were so powerful that they had to be purged. Over the past few months, Aesop and Nero had been searching the Shattered Star Ring and had already discovered the locations of many of the Supercluster Alliance's transport routes, causing quite a lot of losses. If not for the fact that the Black Star Corps only targeted the Moto civilization on the surface and could only accidentally injure the other supercluster civilizations, the impact on the war situation would have been even greater. Although Nero's luck played a huge role in this, in the eyes of the supercluster civilization, it was mainly due to Aesop's prophecy. Therefore, even if they did not need to deal with Black Star, they had to think of a way to deal with Aesop. Now, they could kill two birds with one stone. However, the Soul Swap twins were disappointed. I thought that we would directly attack Black Star. I was happy for nothing. Lagos frowned. If we fail to deal with Black Star, you guys will definitely die. Isn't it safer to deal with Aesop? Hearing this, the Soul Swap twins sneered sarcastically. They were living in darkness. Why would they care about this? Black Star was a pinnacle beyond grade A, so he would definitely not be easy to deal with. However, the two of them did not care about the danger of the operation at all. They only had their eyes on Black Star's huge assets and high status. If they could use the Soul Swapper to occupy Black Star's body, all of this would belong to them. Not only would they obtain freedom, but they would also become the strongest in the universe and take away the power and foundation that Black Star had built over decades. Compared to life and death, the two of them wanted to take this gamble more. However, there was no need to express their thoughts at this time. Tell us, what do you want us to do? The younger of the Soul Swap twins asked with a hoarse voice. Aesop is now the special consultant of the Black Star Corps. The Black Star Corps is heavily guarded and has some kind of special ability to discover enemy targets. Therefore, we will use fake transportation lines as bait to lure the snake out of its hole and find a way to let the two of you come into contact with Aesop. Then, you will use the Soul Swapper to temporarily distort his thoughts and manipulate him into participating in the conflict of a certain civilization. Then, you will deliberately send him to his death and frame that civilization to anger the Dragon Emperor. We will push this matter secretly. You only need to be responsible for your own mission. You don't need to know the other details. Lagos explained in a low voice. Be it for public or private reasons, Aesop had to die and frame his death on a star system civilization that was protected by the peace treaty. This would make the Dragon Emperor hate that civilization, and it would be best if the Dragon Emperor lost control and caused a massacre. This way, the advanced civilizations would have to protect the peace treaty and make the Dragon Emperor the target of public criticism. Even if the Dragon Emperor was not forced to do such a thing, with her personality, she would definitely have a conflict with that civilization. No matter what, the Black Star Corps would definitely turn around and help. They might even have to use force to protect the Dragon Emperor. This way, the Black Star Corps would have another more urgent opponent, and there was a high chance that they would withdraw their troops. Got it. The Soul Swap twins did not comment. This was not the first time the two of them had done something like this, so they were already used to it. Lagos gave a few more instructions before ending the communication. The guard closed the door again, not allowing the two of them to move around freely. The Soul Swap twins looked at each other. They did not need to say anything to understand each other. This was a chance to become free people. After they obtained the Soul Swapper, they would find a way to escape after completing the mission. They were not willing to continue being imprisoned by the Moto civilization as tools. In his office, Han Xiao flipped through the reports of a shattered star ring and looked up at Nero and Aesop's remote projections from time to time. 38 superstar cluster alliance transport fleets discovered. 2 secret transport routes of the Moto civilization and 7 secret transit resource strongholds have been completely destroyed. Daily supplies, weapons, and ammunition have been seized. There are also 11 suspected transport routes of other superstar cluster civilizations being monitored. Well done. After browsing through the report, Han Xiao smiled and praised. It's all thanks to your guidance. Nero touched his head, smiled, and licked his hand. You're now the general manager of the Shattered Star Ring. Don't smile so foolishly. You have to be serious, okay? Han Xiao knocked on the table. Nero's face instantly tensed up. He stopped smiling and put on a serious expression. He was now an adult, but in front of Han Xiao, he had always been very relaxed and unknowingly revealed his childish side, making Han Xiao feel that he had not grown up. However, In the eyes of an elder like him, his child would always be a child who had not grown up. Of course, it could also be because Nero's height made him look very young. This time, Aesop smiled and said, "I like this kid. He has a lot of potential. Give him some time, and he will grow into someone who can take charge. Plus, his luck is really not bad." Han Shao nodded and asked, "Have you made any predictions about the Modo civilization recently?" Aesop shook his head. It's still that vague sense of danger. 3 months have passed, and they still don't seem to have made a move. Han Shao turned to look at Nero. Then pay attention to increasing the intelligence gathering. If there's any movement, report to me immediately. During this period of time, he had analyzed the possible plans of the Modo civilization and felt that the chances of them attacking him directly were very low. It was more likely that they would attack the people around him. Thus, he strengthened the defenses around his mother planet and the various officers, especially increasing Philip's surveillance of the entire army. Because most of the intelligence was reported one by one and might not reach him, he lowered the importance of the intelligence that Philip reported directly to him. Although this would cause the number of things he had to deal with to increase exponentially, Han Shao did not mind being more careful at such a time. "By the way, how did you talk to Ames? I'm running around with the Black Star Corps now. Isn't she afraid that I'll find a chance to sneak away?" Aesop asked. "Oh, she told me to watch over you for her. If you run away, I'll bring you back." Han Shao smiled. "TSK, I knew it." Aesop glared at him. "Is she that worried? How can she compare to me in terms of experience? I've eaten more salt than she has rice." "Then you must be worried a lot." Han Shao raised his brows. "From your tone, it sounds like you really want to sneak away. I've been under house arrest on Floating Dragon Island for decades. I can't stay here until I die of old age, right?" Aesop crossed his arms in front of his chest. "To be honest, with you looking after Ames, I'm not worried at all. Therefore, there's no need for me to continue staying here. I'll just treat these years as self-cultivation. It's time for me to continue my journey." Han Shao did not find it strange. Although Aesop had stayed by Ames' side for decades, to a long-lived species like him, this amount of time was probably like 1 or 2 years in the eyes of a normal person. This old man was a prodigal son who pursued excitement. He could not be tied up in one place forever. "Then, why don't you tell Ames directly? If you're honest and reasonable, she definitely won't stop you." No. That way, she won't send people to chase after me. That's so boring." Aesop shook his head repeatedly. There was a hint of, "if you can catch me, I'll let you have sex with me" in his tone. Han Shao was speechless. He suddenly felt like beating this old man up. "Aren't you afraid that I'll be on guard and not let you escape?" "Haha, I'm going to tell you. You won't stop me." Aesop laughed. "I need to maintain some sort of tacit understanding with her, so I need you to help me convey my intentions." Han Shao understood. Aesop wanted to leave without saying goodbye, so he used him as a mouthpiece. He might even be trying to get back at him. After all, he was the one who had captured Aesop previously. This old man still remembered this matter. He was old and cared about his face. Giving him a heads up in advance and successfully escaping, the two of them would be even. This was one of Aesop's few wicked interests. "Then, were you going to escape?" "I'm going to finish my last job for you. I'll leave after the flickering war is over." Let's see if you can escape from my grasp at that time." Han Shao and Aesop looked at each other and smiled. Nero looked left and right at the side and suddenly felt like he was a third party who did not fit in. Han Shao said a few more words before hanging up. After thinking for a while, he dialed another number and contacted Ames. Halfway through the first ring, the call was picked up. "Yo, busy person. You have time to chat with me again?" Ames's chuckle flowed out of the communicator like a stream. "What have you been doing recently?" Han Shao smiled. "Studying the knowledge you exchanged for me." Han Shao had exchanged for an Esper-class knowledge and passed it to Ames. She had been studying it at home. Normal beyond grade, as did not have an interface and could not advance overnight, so they could only study the class knowledge slowly. The two of them chatted for a while, and the topic changed to the recent events. "Black Star, how long do you think the flickering war will last?" Ames was curious. 3 to 5 years at least, 10 to 20 years at most. Han Shao pondered. The Supercluster Alliance would not give up so easily. In his previous life, the flickering war lasted for quite a long time. The players came into contact with the proxy war at the end of version 4.0, and most of the war zones became the battlefield of the regular army. At that time, the players had already gone offline. This time, with the sudden intelligent plague, the Supercluster Alliance was more prepared and could resist for a longer time. However, with his intervention this time, the battle would be shortened. The two factors affected each other and changed the storyline of his previous life. Han Xiao could not say for sure how long the Supercluster Alliance could last this time. However, the final result was most likely the same as in his previous life. It would still end with the Superstar Cluster Alliance's defeat. This battle was meant to give them a glimmer of hope, a gamble with a very low success rate. However, the Superstar Cluster Alliance still decided to enter. So long. Ames sighed softly. I originally wanted to invite you to travel to the secondary dimensions again, but it seems like you won't have the time in the next few years. Again, Han Xiao subconsciously rubbed his waist. You're not willing? Ames tilted her head, her long hair cascading down her shoulders like a waterfall. Ahem, actually I'm not that busy. You know that us beyond grade as basically won't participate in the flickering war personally. After we destroy the Moto civilization, I'll be free. At that time, I could take some time to accompany you to the secondary dimensions. I'll take the opportunity to let Aesop slip away. Han Xiao thought to himself. Then it's settled. Ames' eyes curved as she smiled. Chapter 11:67. Somewhere in the shattered star ring, 3 small battleships with the insignia of the Black Star Corps were patrolling in space. The models of the spaceships were all Flash-class shuttles, known for their speed. The responsibility of this team was to track suspicious transport fleets. The Black Star Corps had set up such tracking teams in many star systems in the shattered star ring. In the command room of the leading spaceship, the captain carefully stared at the star map in front of him. The patrol route of the team was marked on it. Once a suspicious fleet was found or a new mission was assigned, it would be displayed on the star map. I heard that traces of a suspicious transport fleet were found in the neighboring star zone 2 days ago. The clues are intermittent, and it seems like we lost track of them. Do you think they will run into our area? An adjutant beside him chatted casually with his colleague. It would be great if they really came here. As long as we can track the suspicious fleet, it will be considered a contribution. We have been patrolling here for a few months, and we have yet to carry out a proper mission. If we are unlucky, who knows when we will be able to make a contribution. The other person's tone was filled with envy. The patrol mission was boring, and the captain did not stop his subordinates from chatting. He had the same thought in his mind. Although he was only a basic member of the army, he had a hard-working heart. As long as he accumulated enough contributions, he would be able to exchange for the elite training qualification of the army. Investing in himself would be beneficial to his promotion. Beep beep. At this time, a red light spot emitting ripples suddenly appeared on the star map, and a notification sounded at the same time. This was a field inspection mission issued by the surveillance department. Usually, it meant that the space buoy had detected a suspicious fleet. The mission is here. The captain's eyes sparkled. The opportunity had come. He immediately ordered the fleet to change direction and head toward the marked coordinates. The 3 spaceships immediately changed direction, and their engines shot out into the depths of the galaxy. After sailing for a while, the team arrived at the target location. They turned on the detection device, and 30 to 40 traces of space folds appeared on the radar. These were traces left behind by high-speed hyperdrive, and each of them represented a spaceship. These traces would disappear with time, but they had not completely disappeared yet. They extended out and pointed out the direction of these dozens of spaceships. A total of 41 hyperdrive traces. It's a small fleet. Follow the traces and catch up, the captain said without hesitation. The team moved forward at full speed, following the traces of the warp jump. After 2 hours of tracking, a barren asteroid came into view. The trail ended here, which meant that the target had exited transition mode. Reporting, the target's tracks have disappeared. He may be temporarily staying on this planet to collect resources, or he may be hiding behind the planet to ambush. Please give us the next step. The adjutant looked at the radar that had no warning and said. The captain pondered for 2 seconds and said, Ship number 2, scan the surface of the planet. Ship number 3, circle to the back of the planet. Ship number 1, where I am, is on standby. Keep the engine running to ensure that we can evacuate at any time. Got it. The 3 spaceships immediately split up, and it didn't take long for them to come to a conclusion. They found a fleet docked somewhere on the planet. The symbol of the Force on the outer armor represented a local commercial consortium. At this time, they were collecting underground gas resources, and the scale was exactly the same as the number of warp traces. It was the target of the team. Issue a wide-area communication request to check their identity code, the captain said. The transport fleets of the Supercluster Alliance used all kinds of methods to cross the ocean, and disguising themselves as troops of other organizations was one of the most common methods. If the Army's tracking team caught up with a suspicious fleet, they would usually ask to check the other party's identity first. If there was a misunderstanding, they would let them go. Normally, checking the identity of a transit fleet was the responsibility of the security team. As a private armed organization, the Black Star Corps did not have this authority. However, fists for power. Now that the Black Star Corps was chasing the transport fleet of the Moto civilization all over the starfield, normal organizations would give them face and not ask for trouble. Most of the civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring would not have any opinions and would turn a blind eye to it. Occasionally, when the tracking team encountered the real deal, the enemy would strike first. This was a risk that could not be avoided. Therefore, the tracking team would usually not fight and would always maintain communication with the intelligence department. This way, even if the tracking team was cut off, they could still send back information and let the surveillance department know that the target was an enemy. This time, the tracking team sent a communication request to the transport fleet, but there was no response. The captain immediately became alert. Something's wrong. Prepare to evacuate immediately. Report. However, before he could finish, his mind suddenly went blank, and his vision suddenly became chaotic. This state lasted for a moment before he regained his clarity of mind. However, when he saw the scene in front of him again, his entire body froze, and horror exploded from his heart, instantly destroying his rationality. He saw that his surroundings had become a prison, and his body was firmly locked in a prison cabin, unable to move. He was shocked. I was still in the command room of the shuttle 1 second ago. How'd I suddenly end up here the next? Before he could understand, his head went dizzy again, and the environment around him changed again. He was actually in a transparent glass room, and beside him was a group of enormous black beetles. His eyes passed through the transparent walls of the room, and he was instantly terrified. He saw many giants walking around outside the room, and he could not even see the end of them. He could not see how big these giants were. As far as the eye could see, everything seemed to have become countless times larger. What the hell is this? The captain muttered to himself subconsciously, but he did not hear his own voice. Instead, there was a slight hissing sound. He was slightly taken aback, and he looked down at himself. A chill suddenly rushed to his brain, and he was scared out of his wits. He could not believe what he was seeing. His body had turned into a black beetle, exactly the same as the insects around him. In an instant, he understood something. It was not the world that had become bigger, but he had shrunk. At this moment, an orange-red high-temperature flame fell from the sky, filling the entire glass room, and his mind was frozen in a blazing white. Boom! In just a breath, all the black beetles were burned to ashes. An operator in a white coat moved away the flamethrower used for the experiment, glanced at the residue in the glass box, and made an okay gesture to the captain not far away. The captain nodded and reported to the communication screen. Commander, the target has been eliminated. In the flagship, the commander of this fleet nodded and turned to look at the scene outside the porthole. Out of the 3 shuttles in outer space, 2 of them had been blown up by their sudden attack and turned into fireworks in space. Only the first shuttle, which was the command ship, was left, and it escaped the scene with a hyperdrive under their deliberate mercy. As for the escaping spaceship, the souls of all the crew members had changed under their bodies. The plan is going well. The commander nodded lightly and turned to the side. He saw a black crystal mirror floating in midair. It was about 50 centimeters in diameter and less than 3 centimeters thick. The Soul Swap twins were standing in front of the mirror. Their palms were submerged in the mirror up to their wrists. As if they had been swallowed, ripples appeared on the surface of the mirror. This mirror was a wonder-type universal treasure called the Soul Swapper. "That's enough. Stop," the commander yelled. Hearing this, the Soul Swap twins slowly retracted their palms. The soldiers around immediately stepped forward and moved the Soul Swapper away, putting it into an extremely intricate safe, far away from the Soul Swap twins. Seeing this, the Soul Swap twins casually glanced at the mechanical cannons that extended out from the surrounding walls and territory and laughed nonchalantly. These cannons were safety devices to prevent them from doing anything. They were controlled remotely by artificial intelligence, and the Soul Swapper was only effective against the souls of living beings. It was useless against artificial intelligences. Only then did the commander retract his gaze and look in the direction of the shuttles. He said in a low voice, "The men of sacrifice prepared in advance have already entered the enemy's territory. With us as bait, it should be enough to lure them out." A tracking team in the Thousand Light Star system was ambushed while tracking a suspicious fleet. 2 of their spaceships were destroyed on the spot, and only 1 managed to escape. In the Black Star Corps headquarters in the Shattered Star Ring, Nero finished reading the report and looked up at the officers in the room. "Everyone, what do you think?" Mia's tone was decisive. "The situation is very clear. This transport fleet has made a move, so it's basically confirmed that they are from the Supercluster Alliance. Immediately mobilize the troops around the location of the incident to track the target." I feel that this is a little strange. The troops of the Supercluster Alliance usually don't take any action because their identities will be exposed the moment they engage in battle. Most of the time, they are thinking of ways to get rid of their pursuers. The reason for the encounter is usually because they did not discover their pursuers and accidentally got caught up. However, since they made a move, they shouldn't have left anyone alive. It's the same case. He had learned magic from Lagi for decades. Although his teacher was a salted fish, his talent was just too good. He had also become an upper echelon officer and had a good relationship with Nero. He could be considered one of Nero's subordinates. Maybe the surviving spaceship escaped in time, and the troops of the Supercluster Alliance knew that the information would definitely be leaked. Thus, they did not want to waste time chasing and would rather use the time to escape, Mia guessed. That makes sense as well. Tamar didn't suspect anything. Let's ask the survivors about the specific situation first. Nero thought for a while and instructed his assistant to contact the captain of the surviving spaceship. After a while, the communication screen was connected, and the person on the screen was the captain of the tracking team. "Tell me everything that happened to you. I want to know all the details." The eyes of the captain on the screen flashed, and he nodded. He then revealed an expression of lingering fear and anger as he recounted his experience. The soul under this body had already been replaced by a death warrior prepared by the Modo civilization. The effect of the Soul Swapper was not simply to transfer the souls of the 2 bodies. The soul that was possessed could also inherit most of the memories of the target. After all, the brain of the body was also a memory storage device, just like a library. However, this memory would not naturally merge with the new soul. Instead, it would need to be slowly sorted out and read. Furthermore, there would be some missing parts. Normally, the older the memory, the easier it was to be lost. The more recent the memory, on the other hand, was basically complete. Different souls and bodies would reject each other. Some psychics or espers could also do things like reincarnation and possession, but the success rate was extremely low. Fu Ding and Chun Xing were examples. The Soul Swapper could greatly increase the success rate of soul transfer. Under normal circumstances, the success rate would be close to 100%. However, it would be affected by the strength of the target and the strength of the user. At the same time, using the soul swapper to complete the soul transfer would greatly reduce the rejection between the body and the soul, and there would not be too strong of a rejection. Soul transfer was only one of the functions of the soul swapper. This thing was extremely mysterious, and it had other functions. After listening to the report, Nero gave a few words of encouragement and was about to end the communication. At this moment, the eyes of the survivor flashed, and he pretended to be angry. We are now the closest troop to the enemy. I hope to continue this mission and pursue them to avenge my comrades. Sure, this request was reasonable, and Nero had no reason to reject it. He hung up the communication, and Tomar spoke again. Nero, since the target knows that their whereabouts have been exposed, they will definitely change their plans. They will no longer head to the transportation route and will escape separately. I suggest we use the second plan. This was not the first time that such a situation had happened. If the transportation team was exposed, they would basically be abandoned. Even if they continued to follow them, they would not be able to find the secret stronghold of the Supercluster Alliance. That's right. Nero turned to Aesop and said with an embarrassed tone, Your Excellency Aesop, I will have to trouble you again. It's fine. Aesop waved his hand and did not mind. The so-called second plan was to borrow Aesop's ability to head to the location of the incident and use the relevant clues as a medium to make a prophecy. He would be able to foresee many future possibilities and obtain more clues. In order to obtain a clearer prophecy, he would need more mediums. This method was very effective. Aesop had not only stayed in the headquarters for the past few months, but had also conducted many field investigations under heavy protection. Using this method, he had found many targets for the Black Star Corps. Nero nodded and said loudly, There's no time to delay. Prepare the spaceship immediately and send Your Excellency Aesop and the guards to the location of the incident. On the other side, in a certain star field, on a certain planet, in a certain base, Manison stood in front of a virtual screen with his hands behind his back. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the content on the screen. This was a secret intelligence report from the primeval Star River base camp. It came from a spy he had planted in the Moto civilization many years ago. There was only a short message written on it. The Soul Swap twins have been transferred out of the base. The Soul Swapper has been taken away from the warehouse by the army. Destination unknown. Soul Swapper, huh? If I'm not wrong, the Moto civilization is using this universal treasure to deal with him. Maybe I can, Manison muttered to himself, an inexplicable light flashing in his eyes. Chapter 1168. A few days later, in the Thousand Light Star system of the Shattered Star Ring, a Black Star Corps fleet sailed out of the Stargate. There were thousands of battleships, and in the middle of the fleet was an extremely eye-catching large flagship. Your Excellency Aesop, we are here. In the command room of the bridge, the leading Calamity Grade officer nodded to Aesop. Then, let's get to work. Aesop stood with his hands behind his back and nodded calmly. Under normal circumstances, Nero would arrange at least 2 Calamity Grade supers among Aesop's bodyguards and at least 1,000 battleships. Furthermore, they were equipped with Black Star's backup mechanical army and Lord's Avatar. In the event of a crisis, they could summon Black Star at any time. The nearby tracking teams have all been transferred over and are searching the area around the incident. There are no results for now, so let's go take a look. Sure, Aesop had no objections. The fleet traveled at high speed, crossing star zones one after another, and they soon arrived at the planet where the battle had occurred. The location where the Supercluster Alliance's transport fleet had stopped had already been occupied by the army soldiers who had arrived a few days ago and treated as the crime scene to protect it. A small shuttle carrying Aesop and the others shot out from the belly of the flagship, passing through the cordon that the army had set up around the planet and landing on the crime scene. The hatch opened, and Aesop, wearing a light protective suit, stepped onto the ground with a bunch of bodyguards around him. There were shallow dents and trenches on the ground in front of him, which were clearly left behind when the battleships had stopped and taken off. Aesop quickly walked over, squatted down, and carefully observed these marks. He touched them from time to time with his hands. After walking around the crime scene, he stopped and closed his eyes as though he had entered meditation. This process lasted for about 2 minutes before Aesop opened his eyes again and clapped his hands. I saw some transport spaceships traveling in the universe. The organization symbol on them has changed to that of other organizations. It should be that the fleet of the Supercluster Alliance has changed into different disguises and escaped in different directions. I will draw the symbols of these organizations for you later. You can investigate the fleets of these organizations in the nearby area. Great, this is a great help. As expected of the prophet, Your Excellency Aesop, your efficiency is really admirable. It is our honor to be able to receive your help. The fleet commander praised, flattering loudly. It was obvious that he was a disciple of Hardaway. It's just a small matter. Aesop waved his hand. It's just that these mediums are not enough. If you can seize one of the enemy's warships or capture the members of this unit, I can obtain more accurate clues and find their original destination. Don't worry, with your information, it's only a matter of time before we capture them. However, I'll have to trouble you to stay in this area for a while longer. Once we capture the enemy's ship, we'll need you to take action. This is a small matter. I just happen to want to walk around outside. Aesop did not mind and wrote down the information he had just foreseen. They were all the organization's symbols of the enemy after they changed their disguises. The fleet commander immediately gave the order to pass this information to every tracking team. The group returned to the fleet and was about to set off for the army base in this area. However, the fleet commander suddenly received a message. He looked down at the communicator, and his eyes sparkled. Your Excellency Aesop, you're really a lucky star. I just sent out the key information you provided, and a tracking team found the target. They happened to be resting on a city planet, and they found a suspicious transport ship in the spaceport that matches the camouflage in your prediction. And it's a lone one. That's fast. Aesop could not help but smile. Looks like our luck is still very good. This team that discovered the enemy's tracks has done a great job. Let me check. The one that discovered the enemy's tracks is the only surviving spaceship from the previous battle. I remember that they have been searching everywhere during this period of time. Now, they have finally taken their revenge. The fleet commander smiled. I told them to be on standby and monitor the enemy's spaceship. Wait for us to go over, and don't alarm the enemy easily. The fleet immediately set off. Because they were worried that they would miss the clues, they rushed all the way and arrived at their destination very quickly. Outside the porthole, a light purple and bright silver planet was floating in space. The surface of the planet was filled with bright interstellar cities, with tall buildings and crisscrossing bridges. This was a rather prosperous advanced colonial planet that belonged to the ruler of the Thousand Light Star System, the Light Rune Civilization. It was an official planet with an owner. Coming to such a civilized city planet, the Black Star Corps would not act recklessly, mainly because there was no need. Most of the civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring had a good relationship with the Black Star Corps, and the army would not be too domineering and offend them. The tracking team is still watching the enemy's spaceship. The enemy has not moved. What do you think? The fleet commander said. Have you seen the enemy's crew? Aesop asked. The tracking team has secretly applied to the port officials to view the surveillance footage and shared it with us. According to the surveillance footage, the suspicious spaceship sent out a total of 43 crew members. They seem to be purchasing some daily supplies and have all returned to the spaceship not long ago. We came at the right time. If we came any later, they would have probably left. Good. We must seize this transport spaceship. Aesop said slowly. Inform the officials to cooperate with us. Evacuate unrelated personnel and seal the spaceship's flight path so that they can't take off. The members of the Black Star Corps enjoyed a lot of privileges in the Shattered Star Ring. Even if they were a middle to low-level army member, as long as their identity was confirmed, they could apply for official assistance from many civilizations in the Shattered Star Ring. This was the status and connections that Han Shao had accumulated over the years. The fleet quickly arrived at the port and formed an encirclement just in case. Some ground supers entered the port with the cooperation of the officials and surrounded the target's hangar. Aesop and the fleet commander stayed in the flagship outside the atmosphere and monitored the operation through remote images. On the screen, the supers rushed into the hangar, and very soon, intense gunfire erupted. The light of the energy cannons flickered in the hangar, leaving charred marks on the silver-white alloy walls. The sound of battle lasted for a few minutes, and the report of the operation personnel came back. Report, we only have 3 light injuries, no deaths. The enemy had a total of 271 crew members, and they hid in the battleship and resisted. We have killed 209 of them. The rest of the enemies saw that they had nowhere to run and committed suicide. None of them survived, and we were unable to capture them alive. What a pity. I want to capture them alive for interrogation. The fleet commander shook his head. Forget it. With such low-level crew members, even if we capture them, we probably won't be able to get anything out of them. Capturing their transport spaceship is enough. Your Excellency Aesop, sorry to trouble you. Aesop nodded. Only then did he land at the port with a group of guards and come to the hangar where the battle had just taken place. He looked up at the captured transport spaceship. The exterior was basically intact, and only the outer armor was slightly charred due to the impact of the battle. He took a few steps forward, pressed his palm on the bottom armor of the spaceship, closed his eyes, and activated his ability. At the same time, in a galactic city not far from this port, in a rented temporary stronghold, the Soul Swap twins were using the Soul Swapper floating in front of them. Beside them, dozens of Moto supers aimed their weapons at the two of them. There were also many portable cannons around. There was more than one Moto civilization spaceship that had arrived at this planet, but the tracking team had secretly become their men of sacrifice, so they naturally had a way to hide it. The commander paced around with a nervous expression. Have you locked onto the target? The elder brother of the Soul Swap twins had his palm swallowed by the mirror of the Soul Swapper, and he casually said, locked onto it. Can you transfer it out? Tis TSK. Us brothers are only grade C supers, and Aesop is a grade B. The success rate of transferring his soul out of his body is not 100%. To be safe, we'll use Plan B, the commander said with a deep voice. All right. The Soul Swap twins clicked their tongues and exerted force. The Soul Swapper shook, and black ripples appeared on the mirror surface. At the same time, Aesop, who was far away in the port, suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip. It was as if countless voices suddenly flooded into his brain and merged into a deafening sound, echoing in his mind. He had a splitting headache. He wanted to raise his hand to cover his forehead, but his fingers would not listen to him. It was as if he was being pressed down by a ghost. He could not move his limbs at all, and his entire body froze on the spot. Seeing that his expression was not right, the adjutant beside him could not help but ask, "What's wrong?" Aesop's expression changed a few times. Suddenly, his expression froze for a moment before returning to normal. He coughed, lowered his voice, and said, "It's nothing. I've already completed the prophecy." "What clues did you get?" Aesop's eyes sparkled, and he said, "I discovered the real destination of this supercluster alliance fleet. It's located in a desolate universe belt, a secret resource stronghold. The coordinates are," he told the adjutant the coordinates, and the adjutant hurriedly recorded it. This information is enough. Let's go back to the spaceship." Then, without waiting for the adjutant to answer, Aesop turned around and left. The bodyguard beside him immediately followed. On the other side, in the temporary stronghold where the Soul Swap twins were, the commander could not help but ask, "Did it work?" The younger brother of the Soul Swap twins smiled hoarsely and said, "We transferred the souls of the martyrs who were already prepared and successfully parasitized Aesop's soul. The main function of a Soul Swapper was to transfer souls, but there was no rule that one could only exchange one soul. It was possible to stuff a bunch of souls into the same body, or simply transfer the souls out of the body and turn the body into an empty shell. This time, it was not like Fu Ding and Chun Xing's possession, but a parasitic puppet manipulation. The souls of a bunch of Moto martyrs temporarily merged with Aesop's soul like strings, piercing into Aesop's soul and temporarily turning him into a puppet. Aesop's mind would also become chaotic temporarily, unable to maintain normal thinking. He would feel that all his actions came from his heart, and he would not be able to discover the strangeness of his own body. To put it simply, it was similar to the state of someone who had too much to drink. Aesop's guards won't notice, right? Someone asked. The commander shook his head and said, "Don't worry. The ability of the soul swapper is extremely hidden. Other than those beyond grade as who specialize in the mind and soul, no one else will be able to notice it, let alone calamity grades. Of course, there's a chance that a peak beyond grade A will notice something wrong, but Blackstar is not here with his main body. Plus, he won't use Lord Descent to supervise such a small matter, so there's no need to be afraid." Then, the commander clearly relaxed a lot. He turned to look at the Soul Swap twins and said, "Your mission has been completed. Your mission has been completed. What happens next is none of your business. Put down the Soul Swapper." The Soul Swap twins looked at each other and laughed strangely at the same time. Okay. As soon as they said that, the situation changed. The black ripple spread, and all the soldiers in the field, except for the commander, suddenly rolled their eyes and fell to the ground in unison, no longer moving. Without a sound, their souls were all sucked out by the Soul Swapper. At the same time, the baby brother of the Soul Swap twins opened his mouth and sucked out souls from the Soul Swapper, swallowing them into his stomach. The sudden change made the commander realize what was going on. He was both shocked and angry. He did not expect the Soul Swap twins to still dare to cause trouble with so many weapons aimed at them. Did they not want to live anymore? However, right at this moment, a tyrannical energy fluctuation erupted from the Soul Swap twins. Sensing the energy wave, the commander's expression changed drastically. "Grade B? We even checked before he set off. Aren't you guys grade C? People will grow." The elder brother of the Soul Swap twins laughed loudly. The two of them had been pretending to be weak, making the Moto civilization think that they were grade C supers. The method they used was not simply to hide their strength, but a hidden ability that they had never revealed to outsiders. Their energy could be switched freely without any rejection. This was related to the mutation of the two brothers. Once most of the energy was concentrated on one person, it would allow one of them to temporarily reach grade B. When the energy was spread out, it would be able to fool the Moto civilization's super grade detection equipment. The two of them had been planning to escape for many years. They had deliberately controlled the speed of their training and maintained their current strength just for an opportunity like this. The Soul Swap twins said with a sinister smile, "You have to think carefully. We're grade B supers now. These cannons won't be able to kill us instantly. The Black Star Corps hasn't gone far yet. A battle here will definitely attract their attention. Think carefully about whether you want to continue attacking us. Your plan might be exposed then." The commander was shocked. He hurriedly said to his comrade who was controlling the cannons, "Wait, don't fire yet. That's more like it. Be good, and your plan can still continue." The Soul Swap twins sneered. They had chosen this time to make the other party hesitate. The commander suppressed his anger and yelled, "What do you want?" "Very simple. Moto has treated us as tools for many years, and we've done our best. Now it's time to take back our freedom." I understand what you're thinking. Don't worry, we just want to escape. We didn't cause any trouble for your plan against Aesop. Count this as our last mission for Moto. We don't owe you anything. As for this treasure that naturally belongs to us, we'll take it with us. After all, no one else can use it other than us." The Soul Swap twins sneered. With a shake of their wrists, the shadow on their bodies swallowed the Soul Swapper and absorbed it into their bodies. Then, the two of them backed up to the wall, activated their abilities, and turned into two clusters of ink-like darkness, disappearing into the shadows instantly. The commander was furious, but he did not dare make a move. Not only was he worried about alerting the Black Star Corps not far away, but he also did not have the confidence to kill the Grade B Soul Swap twins. He could only watch the two of them use their abilities and leave with the Soul Swapper. The room was dead silent. Only his heavy breathing could be heard. Hurry and report to the upper echelons. The Soul Swap twins have escaped. Chapter 1169. Flickering World, Free Exploration Zone, Moto Civilization Territory. The Soul Swap twins have escaped. Lagos received the remote notification from the military emissary. He was shocked and worried, not because he was concerned about this, but because he was worried that it would affect the plan against Black Star. Can you capture the Soul Swap twins? The military emissary shook his head. The Shattered Star Ring is not our territory. The Black Star Corps and the local civilization surveillance network are all over the place. We can't mobilize people to make a big move, and the target can use the Soul Swapper. His ability to hide is amazing, so we probably won't be able to capture him. Then the plan? Don't worry, the plan will continue. The military emissary smiled. Seeing this, Lagos's face was filled with doubt. Why did the upper echelons not seem to be nervous at all after losing a special universal treasure? You don't seem to be worried at all? The military emissary waved his hands. It's fine. There's no need to send people to capture them. They will return on their own. Could it be? Lagos's expression changed slightly. The military emissary straightened his face and said, "This is not a high-level secret. The upper echelons told me to tell you not to worry about the Soul Swap twins and to carry out the plan as usual." The person in charge of the Marwell project asked a beyond-grade A mage to secretly plant a triggered psychic trap on the Soul Swap twins, creating a hidden secondary personality that is completely loyal to the Moto civilization. As long as it's activated, they will return on their own. I see. Lagos nodded subconsciously, but he frowned again. But if that's the case, why not take away the Soul Swap twins' consciousness and control them directly? Why do we have to take the risk? The military emissary was not bothered. It's very easy to control the Soul Swap twins. No matter how strange they are, they're just low-level supers. However, do you think that the Marwell project has been running for so many years without any experiments? As long as it's a method that you can think of, we've basically tried it. However, the results show that only when the Soul Swap twins have a completely independent consciousness can they use the ability of the Soul Swapper. Other than that, any attempt to control the Soul Swap twins' bodies to use the Soul Swapper will not work. Even if it's just simple brainwashing, the Soul Swapper will not recognize their qualifications to use it. Therefore, we can only half force them like now. Why is that? Lagos was curious. How would I know? It looks like the Soul Swapper has recognized the Soul Swap twins. It probably has something to do with the mysteries of the soul and is very idealistic. It's precisely because it's unreasonable that we categorize the Soul Swapper as a space wonder. If we could figure out why, there wouldn't be any Soul Swap twins. The military emissary snorted. Although the two of them are strange, they're quite weak and aren't much of a threat. It's only because they can borrow the power of the Soul Swapper that they're so feared. They're like children with guns. Understood. Lagos nodded. Well, it's good that you understand the situation. Anyway, you don't have to worry about the Soul Swap twins. Just worry about Black Star. After that, the military emissary cut off the communication and the screen went black. Lagos turned off the virtual screen and exhaled. He was slightly relieved and a smile appeared on his face. Although there was an accident, in his opinion, the most important thing was for the plan against Black Star to be carried out smoothly. In a certain desolate universe belt in the Shattered Star Ring, a secret resource base belonging to the Moto civilization was being attacked by the armed fleet of the Black Star Corps. The image of the battlefield was transmitted to the main control room of the base in the Thousand Light Star system through the Quantum Network channel. Aesop and a group of officers were monitoring the battle remotely. Not long after, the battle in the image ended. The Black Star Corps fleet had wiped out all the enemies, taken down the base, and collected the spoils of war. Very good. We've destroyed another secret base of the Moto civilization. Nero, who was watching the battle remotely, laughed. This is all thanks to His Excellency Aesop's accurate prediction that helped us find the enemy's base. With their superior taking the lead, the officers present all praised Aesop. It's just a small matter. Aesop was not very interested and waved his hands. Haha, credit is credit. You don't have to be humble. I'll get someone to bring you back immediately and reward you properly, Nero said with a smile. I plan to walk around outside for a while. I won't be returning to the headquarters for now. Aesop shook his head. Nero was stunned. How long are you planning to stay outside for? A month. So long. Nero hesitated for a moment and said, I still suggest you come back as soon as possible. There might be a new mission. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? I don't even have a right to walk around outside. Are you treating me as a tool? That's not what I meant. Aesop narrowed his eyes and said coldly, also, remove these troops and bodyguards. I don't like others to disturb me when I'm walking around. Nero had a troubled expression. I can't just casually remove these people. What if an accident happens? Bang! Aesop slammed the table and yelled, Why? Do I need your protection? These people are following me so closely. I think they're spying on me. Let me tell you, remove these people, or I'll return to Floating Dragon immediately. What kind of relationship do I have with Black Star? Who are you to tell me what to do? Nero's expression froze, and he was a little annoyed. This old man was quite easy to get along with in the past. What was going on today? It was as though he had eaten a bomb. Was it his period? However, while he was annoyed, Nero did not dare go against Aesop. After all, Aesop was here to help and represented Floating Dragon, not his subordinate. Furthermore, Aesop was an elder, the adoptive father of the Dragon Emperor, and a good friend of his godfather. It was not good for him to do anything. If the other party did not want to return to the headquarters, he would not be able to change the other party's mind. He could not just kidnap the other party and bring him back. Otherwise, even if his godfather did not blame him, he would not be able to answer to Aunt Ames. Nero suppressed his anger and forced a smile. Since you like peace and quiet, I'll get the guards to not follow you closely. That's more like it. Aesop glanced at the officers around him and casually said, Did you hear me? Did you hear that? While the two of them were arguing, the people in the room stopped what they were doing and kept quiet out of fear. Now that they heard Aesop's words, they could only nod in response. That's right, that's all. I'll return to my room first. Aesop faintly nodded, placed his hands behind his back, and walked away. Seeing Aesop's back disappear from their sight, the expressions of many people in the room turned ugly. Who does this old man think he is to be so arrogant? A calamity-grade bodyguard frowned. If not for the army's orders, do you think I would be willing to protect him? That's right, this fellow really doesn't know what's good for him. Another person was also dissatisfied. All right, stop talking. No matter what, he's still my elder. Maybe he's just in a bad mood today and is unwilling to do so. Then, don't force him. Nero frowned, gave a few instructions, and hung up. To be honest, he had wanted to report this to Han Xiao, but after thinking about it, Aesop had just made a contribution, and his attitude was just a little bad. If he were to complain about it, it would be too similar to complaining to his parents. His godfather hoped that he would be able to take charge, and if he were to do so, his godfather might be disappointed. I'm not angry. In the headquarters office, Nero softly muttered. Indeed, he felt his emotions gradually calm down, and he gradually felt as though he had comprehended some sort of special technique to remain calm. Godfather, something happened. Half a month later, Han Xiao, who was in the Black Star Palace in the Flickering World, received a message from Nero. The moment he picked up, he was shocked by Nero's loud voice. Calm down, what's going on? Han Xiao moved the communicator away from his ear and picked his ear. Not good, Aesop is missing, Nero said anxiously. Han Xiao paused, and his brows raised. What do you mean by missing? He's missing. I don't know where he went, and I can't find him. Didn't you send someone to follow him? How did he get lost? Han Xiao was curious. Nero's tone was vexed, and he recounted what had happened. Because Aesop was repulsed by the bodyguards did not follow him closely and did not disturb him. However, when they were resting on City Planet, the bodyguards discovered that Aesop had gone missing. By the way, they also discovered that Aesop left a video message in the room. What did that old man say? He said, that it was a message specially left for you to remember the agreement you made not long ago. Nero played the video, and it was exactly the same. After figuring out what had happened, Han Xiao stroked his chin with a strange expression. About a month ago, when he was chatting with Aesop, Aesop had mentioned that he was going to take the opportunity to leave the Shattered Star Ring and continue traveling, making a tacit agreement with him. Han Xiao immediately thought that this was the reason for Aesop's disappearance. This old man was going to leave. However, after thinking about it, Han Xiao felt that something was wrong. That's weird. The old man clearly said that he would help me and only leave after the Supercluster Alliance matter. Wouldn't it be breaking his promise if he left now? Could it be that he can't hold it in anymore? Han Xiaoxin thought about it, but did not show it on his face. He only nodded to Nero and said, "Got it. I'll deal with this matter. Don't worry about it for now." I sighed. All right. Nero wanted to say something, but stopped. He originally wanted to defend himself, but after pausing for a while, he gave up, sighed, and hung up. Han Xiao stood up from his chair. His eyes changed, and he tapped the table twice with his finger. Suddenly, he pulled Philip out of his quantum vision. "Master, what are you doing? Give me all the records of Aesop's movements in the past month." Although Han Xiao felt that Aesop might have taken the initiative to run away, it was still better to be cautious at such a time. Very soon, Philip found the records. Han Xiao closed his eyes and quickly browsed through them in his mind. There doesn't seem to be any problems. More than 10 days ago, he even destroyed a secret stronghold of the Modo civilization. It seems very normal, Han Xiao mumbled to himself. These records did not seem to be abnormal, but he had a strange feeling in his heart that there was something fishy going on. The intuition of a beyond grade, it was usually quite accurate. Coupled with the danger premonition that Aesop had mentioned some time ago, he could not help but have a bad feeling. No, I still have to find him to verify it. Originally, his agreement with Aesop was only to capture him symbolically and secretly let him go. If he really captured Aesop, Ames would definitely be on guard and guard him strictly. Aesop would probably not be able to escape. However, for the sake of caution, Han Xiao still decided to capture Aesop and ask him. Anyway, the old man did not keep his promise first. Even if he made a mistake, he would not be at a disadvantage. After making up his mind, Han Xiao gave Nero an order and told him to command the troops of the Shattered Star Ring to search for Aesop's traces. Then, Han Xiao stood up, walked out of the room, and came to a private laboratory. There was a translucent hibernation chamber in the laboratory, and the sleeping Rhodey was locked inside. There were information form restraints scattered around, which were the sub-bodies of Destiny's Child that had yet to be completely transformed. Old man Aesop's prophecy is amazing. If he really wants to escape, unless Nero, Fu Ding, and the others come personally, it won't be easy to catch him with just my subordinates. However, I now have a reliable prophecy towel in my hands. Han Xiaoxin secretly laughed. In the past, he was just a fake prophet and could only rely on his metaphysics to try his luck and catch Aesop. This time, it was different. He had a real master prophet in his hands. Prophets could see many possibilities in the future. When sparring, the situation could be roughly summed up as I predicted your prediction, and you predicted mine. Whoever was stronger would be able to suppress the other party. Although Rhodey had only transformed halfway and could not control his abilities subjectively, the topic of his prophecies was basically random. With the uniqueness of Destiny's Child, he should be able to exchange a few blows with Aesop. Han Xiao operated the hibernation chamber a few times, and not long after, Rhodey woke up. He opened his eyes in a daze and was stunned for a while before coming back to his senses. Seeing Han Xiao outside the chamber, he could not help but shrink his head. "Your Excellency, Black Star? You're awake." Han Xiao opened the door and smiled. "I have something that I need your help with. I need to borrow your prophecy ability." But I can't control this ability yet." Rhodey was a little flustered. "Just do your best. Do you still remember that old man who could see you? The tall and thin one, the one who spoke up for you." "I remember." Rhodey nodded. He had met Aesop before and had a deep impression of him. "That guy played hide-and-seek with me. I want to find him now. Keep saying his name in your mind, then touch my body and try to trigger the prophecy related to him. Then, what if I don't get the prophecy? Rhodey asked weakly. Han Xiao smiled, but his tone was unquestionable. Then keep trying until you succeed. Hearing that, Rhodey shuddered. He still could not control his prophecy ability. He needed to touch someone, and he would definitely faint. When he woke up, he would be very weak. That was not a good feeling. At that moment, Han Zhao's smile was like the devil's in his eyes. Are you ready? I'm ready. Rhodey knew that he had no room to refuse. He swallowed his saliva and madly chanted Aesop's name in his mind. He only hoped that he could exceed his standards and succeed on the first try. He reached out his trembling hand and touched Han Zhao's arm. At the moment of contact, Rhodey trembled as if he had been electrocuted. If someone did not know better, they would think that he was doing a shock dance. A few seconds later, he suddenly let out a short scream. His eyes rolled back as he fell to the ground and fainted. Han Xiao was not surprised. He took out an emerald green injection from his pocket and injected Rhodey with it. Now that he could observe Rhodey, it meant that he could actually make contact with him. The reason Rhodey fainted was that he could not afford to lose his ability as a normal person. Taking the relevant injection could speed up his awakening. This was the result that Han Xiao came to after more than 10 experiments. As expected, not long after, Rhodey's eyelashes fluttered, and he slowly opened his eyes. His blurry vision became clear again. He saw Han Zhao's burly body squatting in front of him, staring at him with a pair of burning eyes. Tell me, what did you see? Rhodey shrunk his neck in fear and recalled the scene in his dream. He looked at Han Zhao's expression and said carefully, I saw you. You and a woman in a black dress were involved in a war. Countless battleships exploded under your hands, and there was a corpse lying at your feet. A corpse? Han Xiao was stunned. The plot of his previous life surged into his mind. He subconsciously said, Aesop's. Yes, it's his. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes slightly. In his previous life, it was because of Aesop's death that the Dragon Emperor lost control and committed a massacre, violating the peace agreement between the advanced civilizations in the universe. She was surrounded and eventually disappeared, her fate unknown. Is this the closure of the world line? Or is it because of some other reason that I don't know? Interesting. I keep feeling like someone is plotting something behind my back. Han Xiao stood with his arms crossed, scratching the stubble on his chin with his middle finger, deep in thought. Chapter 1170. On the mother planet of the Modo civilization, the Modo Three Kings were having a meeting with the military upper echelons. News from the front line. Aesop has started his operation. The plan is going well. The first choice is to let Aesop leave the Shattered Star Ring and get involved in the civilization conflicts in other star fields. This way, when Aesop dies, Black Star will have to go to other star fields to deal with this matter and take his troops far away from his base. Although Aesop's prophecy ability is useful, Black Star has been in the Shattered Star Ring for many years. He might not be able to escape on his own. Therefore, we need to help him and help him avoid detection. If he really can't escape, we can only choose a local civilization in the Shattered Star Ring as the target. The upper echelons discussed animatedly. At this moment, the three kings of Modo received a secret message. Their eyes flickered, and they suddenly said, "Meeting adjourned. Rest for half an hour." Everyone was stunned, but did not object. They got up and left the conference room. After everyone left, only the Modo Three Kings were left in the room. This time, a virtual communication screen appeared on the table, and an old chuckle sounded. Hee, it's an honor to meet the three of you. Mecha Empire. The Modo Three Kings had serious expressions. Just now, the Mecha Empire contacted the Modo civilization and mentioned that they wanted to discuss a cooperation with the Three Kings. Therefore, the secretary came to ask for their opinion. The Modo Three Kings finally decided to listen to what the Mecha Empire had to say. The entire universe knew that the Mecha Empire was in an extremely awkward situation. Many supercluster civilizations saw the opportunity to rope them in and wanted to cooperate with the Mecha Empire in secret. However, Manison did not say anything, but he did not reject them either. Because of the special situation the Mecha Empire was in, the leaders of the supercluster civilizations all valued the attitude of the Mecha Empire very much. Your Excellencies, I know you're very busy, so I won't be polite. I've considered your previous suggestion. I plan to cooperate with the Modo civilization now, Manison said calmly. What kind of cooperation? We'll secretly work together to deal with the Black Star Corps. What do you think? The Modo three kings looked at each other and did not agree immediately. Instead, they asked, so many supercluster civilizations want to work with you. Why did you choose Modo? It's very simple. I'm not interested in getting involved in the battle between the three universal civilizations and you guys. My only target is Black Star, and you guys are the most suitable partners. He's our common enemy, so I can reasonably get involved. Be more specific. The United Front requires the Beyond Grade A members to remain neutral. Participating in a war is despised. However, as the vice president, Black Star started a war with the Modo civilization with personal vengeance. As the president, I can also follow suit and use my grudge with Black Star as an excuse to work with you to deal with the Black Star Corps. This way, even if they find out, they won't be able to say anything. Manison's tone was light and breezy, revealing the meaning of if he does something, I'll do the same. The three kings of Modo thought for a moment and nodded, indicating that they accepted this explanation. Although they hoped that the Mecha Empire would join the Supercluster Alliance and turn around to deal with the three universal civilizations, this hope was slim. Now that they said they were only targeting Black Star, the Modo civilization could accept it. Now that Black Star had put them in a terrible situation, it was not a bad idea to solve this problem. So, you plan to send troops to help us fight the Black Star Corps? That's not it. Manison shook his head slightly. My forces in the flickering world are not as strong as Black Star's. Plus, fighting the Black Star Corps openly goes against the purpose of the Development Union. Since you're not sending troops, how are you going to attack Black Star? Manison's tone was calm as he slowly said, there are many ways to attack. For example, attacking Black Star's reputation. The three universal civilizations are using me as a negative example to build support for him, which has already affected my position in the machinery faith and damaged my interests. I have to find a way to destroy Black Star's reputation. This is why I decided to work with you. What I can do is provide assistance in the dark, such as letting the organizations I planted in the Flickering World and the Shattered Star Ring do something secretly. After all, your troops are being watched very closely, while my people can move freely in the dark. Hearing this, the three kings of Modo frowned. If the Mecha Empire was not willing to officially join the war, their role would be limited. However, from another perspective, the two sides did not have much of a relationship to begin with. The Mecha Empire was not having a good time either, so they could only keep a low profile. Of course, they would not let their troops risk their lives for the supercluster civilization. Furthermore, the Mecha Empire was not wrong. The supercluster civilization's troops were being watched too closely, so it was inconvenient for them to move. Furthermore, the Mecha Empire had planted a large number of subsidiary organizations in various star fields, forming an intelligence network and resource network. They could still be of great help. Okay, we're happy to work with you. We'll talk about the specific plan later. Sure, I wish us a pleasant cooperation. Manison smiled faintly and ended the communication. Seeing this, the three kings of Modo relaxed. They looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. If Manison's people helped move Aesop out of the Shattered Star Ring, the success rate would be much higher than if they acted alone. Although the three of them had not decided whether to let the Mecha Empire participate in this plan or not, it was definitely a good thing to have an extra insurance. If they could not send Aesop out of the Shattered Star Ring, it would not be too late to let the Mecha Empire take over. Furthermore, if Aesop died in the hands of the Mecha Empire, their goal would also be achieved, or even better. However, what the three kings did not know was that Manison's motive for proposing cooperation was not pure. Although he also wanted to attack Black Star, that was not his main goal. According to the report, the Modo civilization had moved the Soul Swapper out. It was definitely to deal with someone, and it was most likely Black Star. Therefore, Manison wanted to use Black Star as an excuse to cooperate with Moto and try to get involved in related operations to obtain more information and help him find the whereabouts of the Soul Swapper, taking advantage of the situation to steal the Soul Swapper. That was his intention. Anyway, there was no loss. Whether it succeeded or not, it was worth a try. In the cabin, two bodies covered in shadows were lying on the ground, one big and one small. At this moment, they were as still as vegetables. They were the Soul Swap twins. Beside them stood two normal-sized cosmic humans, a man and a woman, moving their limbs. The black, crystal-like Soul Swapper floated beside them. This body is a pugilist. It's strong and feels pretty good. I haven't felt this healthy in a long time. The man rubbed his neck with a satisfied expression. Stop wasting time. This is just a temporary shell. Quickly put away our main bodies, the woman scolded. This man and woman were the Soul Swap twins who had changed their bodies. The elder brother was Jill Emerson, and the younger brother was Warren Emerson. The Soul Swapper was also effective on them. They could transfer their souls to other people's bodies and complete a possession. After changing their bodies, their Esper abilities would not be transferred together. They could only use the original abilities and combat power of their bodies. For example, if they were transferred to a Grade D Super, their combat power would also become Grade D. However, the strength of their souls would not be affected and would remain at Grade B, which would not hinder them from using the Soul Swapper. The qualification for the two of them to use the Soul Swapper came from their souls. It had nothing to do with the body they used. They could even use the body of a dog. This ability was one of the reasons why the two of them were confident in escaping. They could change their bodies continuously, and their concealment was extremely high. Brother, although we're free now, that hidden danger hasn't been removed. Warren pointed at his head. That mental trap is troublesome. Luckily, the Moto civilization probably thinks that we won't discover it. Jill pursed his lips in disdain. The mental trap set up by the direct, beyond Grade A mages of the Moto civilization had implanted their souls. It would not disappear because of the transfer of their souls. Logically speaking, with the two of them being only around Grade B, they should not have been able to discover this mental trap, let alone remove it. They should have been kept in the dark. However, the Soul Swapper had the ability to detect the state of the soul. A space wonder treasure basically had a certain degree of absoluteness. Not to mention a mental trap set up by normal beyond grade. Even in mental spells of a peak beyond grade, it would not be able to escape the detection of the Soul Swapper. This was like the absoluteness of the space-time amber. As long as the principle was not broken, the combined attacks of 10 peak beyond grade as would not be able to damage the space-time amber at all. It was wishful thinking for the two of them to remove the mental trap set up by a beyond grade A with their insignificant strength. However, with the addition of a space wonder, it was different. Even if the two of them were limited by their strength, and the upper limit of the power and range of the Soul Swapper was not high, they still had a way to deal with this hidden danger. The Soul Swapper did not have the ability to purify the soul, but the two of them planned to absorb a large number of souls, fusing them into mental energy that was far beyond their own, and continuously grinding away the spell seals in their brains. This plan would consume a large number of souls, so it would definitely harm many living beings. However, the two of them clearly did not have a choice, so they did not care. Brother, do we have any plans for the future? Of course, we'll escape to a place where no one knows us and live in seclusion. We'll obtain a body with great potential and slowly train our strength. As long as we grow to the calamity grade, or even beyond grade, we'll be able to do whatever we want in this universe. Jill understood the principle of growing slowly was the only way. Flames of ambition danced in his eyes. In his heart, it was both fortunate and unfortunate to be the only ones who could use the Soul Swapper. The fortunate part was that the Soul Swapper only recognized the two of them as its users, like they were the chosen ones. The unfortunate part was that the two of them were imprisoned by the Moto civilization for many years, undergoing countless inhumane experiments, and their temperaments gradually turned crazy. However, The unfortunate dark years were over, and the future was filled with hope. The Soul Swapper had brought them endless possibilities. From now on, they were free to do whatever they wanted. Floating Dragon Island, steaming hot steam, filled the magnificent palace. Everything within sight was covered in mist, and from time to time, the sound of water splashing could be heard in the depths of the steam. Who? The thick steam was stirred up, and a tall and muscular figure suddenly appeared beside the clothes rack in the palace. The king mechanical suit covering his body automatically took off, and a light flashed back, leaving Han Xiao in black where he was. The sound of water in the room paused for a moment, and a green force field wrapped in steam shot toward Han Xiao like a cannonball. Han Xiao ignored it and let it hit his chest. His body did not move at all. "You scared me. Let me know the next time you teleport over." Aim's helpless voice came from the steam. Han Xiao's vision passed through the steam and saw a gorgeous bathtub made of black crystal in the middle of the room. Ames had tied up her hair with a white cloth, and her back was facing him. Her body was sitting in the bathtub, and he could only see her fair neck and round shoulders. Her skin was smooth and supple. "Bathing." Han Xiao snapped his fingers. "Hurry up and finish. I have something to tell you." "What is it?" Ames turned her head slightly, revealing the side of her delicate face. Her long eyelashes had water droplets hanging on them, and she blinked gently. "It's about Aesop. He's lost." "Wait for me." Ames did not avoid Han Xiao. She stood up and directly heated up her body temperature. White steam scattered in all directions, and the surface of her body instantly became dry again. She walked out of the bathtub, casually waved her hand, and used her force field to hook the black dress hanging on the side. She put it on with a slight twist, then took off her headscarf and let her hair fall. The body of a beyond grade A would not be stained with dirt. Bathing was mainly for enjoyment. As long as one adjusted their body temperature to the standard of a normal person, they would be able to feel the feeling of soaking in a hot spring again. This way, there would be no need to look for magma. "Let's go. We'll talk outside." The two of them walked out of the palace and came to the garden. Aim sat down on a deck chair, blinking her eyes as she stared at Han Xiao. Her expression was a little strange. "I allowed Aesop to help you, but you let him escape. That's not very competent. You didn't let him go on purpose, did you? That's too bad. Cough, cough. You're thinking too much." Han Xiao coughed unnaturally and said without changing his expression, "Didn't I inform you as soon as possible?" Ames held her chin with one hand and joked, "It seems like even the famous Black Star will still fall in the hands of a master prophet. After all, he's one of us. I can't really put him under house arrest, right?" Han Xiao smiled indifferently. Suddenly, his expression became serious, and he said, "Let's not joke around. My intuition tells me that there's something wrong here. Aesop might not have left on his own accord." "Oh." Ames frowned, and the smile on her face disappeared. She said in surprise, "Did someone kidnap him?" "That won't be the case. I've arranged enough guards for him. If it was a physical kidnapping, I would definitely have been alerted. Then, someone's controlling him mentally? That's where the problem lies. I've asked the guard around Aesop to put on all kinds of mental protection devices, mental wave detection devices, and energy wave detectors. If someone used psychic, soul magic, or mental esper abilities on him, it would have triggered an alarm. Even a beyond grade, it would have left a trace. However, none of these devices reacted. Therefore, I suspect that Aesop might have been controlled by an unknown method. Although the soul and mind were not the fields that mechanical technology specialized in, it was not like there was no research on them at all. It was just that they were far from being proficient in magic technology." "What method?" Ames asked. "I'm not sure either. We'll only know after we find Aesop and check." Han Xiao shook his head. In fact, if his hypothesis was correct, he was very curious as to how Aesop had fallen for it. It was so silent that he did not know what method it was. "I'll look for him with you." Ames narrowed her eyes, and a dangerous glint flashed in her eyes. "You dare to attack my people? Do you think I'm dead? Don't be so agitated. This is just my guess. It won't be too late to say it after we've checked it out." Han Xiao comforted Ames. The reason he had come over today was to give Ames a heads up and a little bit of a conspiracy theory so that she would be mentally prepared. This was to prevent her from losing control of her emotions like in his previous life. Han Xiao understood Ames' personality quite well. Although she usually looked like she did not care about anything, Aesop, Jenny, Hela, and Aurora were her friends and family. The moment she was threatened, she would turn into an angry female dragon and throw all rules to the back of her head. No matter what enemy she faced, she would face them head-on, not caring about the consequences at all. This time, Han Xiao asked Philip to send a message. A few seconds later, the King mechanical suit teleported to his side again. The helmet opened, revealing Fu Ding inside. "Army Commander, I'm here." Han Xiao nodded, turned around, and explained to Ames, "Aesop's prophecy is very useful. Aesop's prophecy is very suitable for hiding. It's hard to catch him with conventional methods, so we need some luck." Not only did he bring Fight in, but he also planned to bring Rhodey along. He would use the King mechanical suit to teleport the three of them over. This would save him a lot of time. As for the manpower, he would directly use the Black Star Army's troops in the Shattered Star Ring. "I'll lend all the people on Floating Dragon to you. Don't worry about anything else. I only want Aesop." Ames handed over the command to Han Xiao without hesitation and stood up expressionlessly. She did not want to waste even a second more. Her tone was firm and decisive. "We'll depart now." Chapter 1171. The universe was extremely vast. Even if one had superhuman strength, if one did not have a large enough organization, it would be difficult for one to achieve anything in the Galactic Society. The current Black Star Army was already the top warlord organization in the galaxy. They had people, money, cannons, and ships. As soon as Han Xiao gave the highest order, the people of the Black Star Army left in the Shattered Star Ring immediately followed his orders and searched the star systems one after another, locking down the various transportation hubs while looking for traces of Aesop. The troops of Floating Dragon Island were almost all out as well. Of course, such a huge commotion could not be hidden from others. Very soon, it attracted the attention of the Galactic Society. It turned out that the Dragon Emperor's elder had gone missing. In order to search for him alone, the Black Star Army had caused a commotion that affected 20 to 30 star systems. Such a huge search affected the operation of some public facilities. Some galactic residents complained, but with the Black Star Corps' reputation, the local civilizations did not care, so no one dared to take it seriously. Other than sending troops to search everywhere, the Black Star Corps also posted a bounty on Aesop and spread it through the local media, mobilizing the power of the people. As long as they could provide any real clues about Aesop, they would receive a huge reward, such as eyewitness reports, transit records, and so on. If they could capture Aesop alive and hand him over to the army, they would receive a huge sum of 135 million anus. This was an amount that a normal galactic resident would not be able to spend in a few lifetimes. Even for some small and medium-sized armed organizations, it was an astronomical amount. As the saying went, when there is a huge reward, there will definitely be brave men. Some small and medium-sized organizations spontaneously joined the search team, and a large number of free mercenaries also took action excitedly. Even some galactic pirates and scavengers were secretly searching for Aesop, hoping to get the reward and wash their hands clean. The local galactic residents of the Shattered Star Ring also paid attention. All of a sudden, Aesop became the target of countless organizations in the Shattered Star Ring, and countless people had their eyes on him. Back then, Han Xiao was all alone, and capturing Aesop was mainly due to Fu Ding's luck. However, now that a few decades had passed, his army had grown into a giant, and there was no need for him to play hide and seek with Aesop like before. As long as he spread out his forces, it would be difficult for the other party to move. Even if Aesop had a powerful prophecy ability, in this situation where everyone was an enemy, he could only act stealthily like a rat in a sewer, not daring to expose himself in front of ordinary people. Of course, these arrangements were only the foundation. Han Zhao's core search method was Rhodey's prophecy, Ames, Fu Ding, Nero, and Harrison's luck, as well as his own virtual technology. They would constantly determine Aesop's possible coordinates on the star map and conduct a targeted search. The dark red sandstorm covered the sky endlessly, as if a red curtain had covered the entire planet. Looking through the sandstorm with extremely low visibility, he saw a figure wearing a heavy protective suit walking alone in the desolate red desert. The strong wind that rolled up the dust was like a heavy hammer, smashing on his body and making muffled sounds. After walking for a few hours, suddenly, a meteor-like flame pierced through the sandstorm and rapidly fell toward the figure. The figure stopped and looked over. A small spaceship was coming closer and closer, reflected on the alloy mask of the protective suit. Who? The spaceship slowly landed in front of the figure and released an air force field with a diameter of 50 meters, isolating the surrounding sandstorm and creating a clean area. The hatch opened with a swoosh. The figure did not hesitate and stepped onto the spaceship. He shook off the sand on his body and took off the heavy protective helmet, revealing an old face. It was Aesop. Aesop patted his helmet, looked up, and asked, "You guys are the people who are here to pick me up?" "Yes, we are now responsible for sending you out of the Shattered Star Ring." The captain walked up and replied, "Don't worry, we are professionals. We are definitely reliable." Aesop nodded and said, "The single-person spaceship that sent me here hasn't been destroyed yet. You guys can blow it up while you're at it. Otherwise, if it falls into Black Star's hands, it will be a medium for prophecy. Don't leave such clues behind." Because of the Black Star Army's lockdown in the Shattered Star Ring, it was extremely difficult for him to move around. He had finally found a space capsule and landed on this desolate planet. After waiting for quite some time, this spaceship finally arrived. "No problem." The captain nodded. The spaceship took off and arrived at a desert not far away. It discovered a metal spaceship that was half buried in the desert. Bang! Bang! Two explosive beams shot out from the spaceship's cannon and blew up the spaceship. The flames only burned for an instant before being extinguished by the wind. Only charred metal pieces were left on the ground, which were gradually buried by the sand. After completing this, the spaceship turned around and shot into the galaxy, leaving behind a trail of flames that slowly disappeared. At the same time, Manison, who was far away in the Primeval Star River, received a message and opened a surveillance image. The image was of Aesop in the spaceship. "Finally, we've picked him up." Manison looked at the image, and his eyes flickered slightly. This spaceship that had gone to pick up Aesop had concealed its organization symbol in order to keep it secret. It actually belonged to an organization called Milled Armed Transport Group, which was one of the secret organizations that Manison had planted in the Shattered Star Ring. Not long ago, the Modo civilization had officially pulled him into their plan and revealed some information to him for help. The Modo civilization had no choice. The Black Star Corps' lockdown was too strong. It was not convenient for them to move around in the Shattered Star Ring. They could not sneak Aesop out at all, and they were almost discovered a few times. Therefore, they decided to borrow the people of the Mecha Empire and let him take over the delivery. Modo must have used the Soul Swapper to influence Aesop and made him run away on his own accord. Manison stroked his beard and pondered. In the information provided by the Modo civilization, of course, they did not mention the existence of the Soul Swapper. They only said that they had used some kind of mental manipulation method to control Aesop and did not explain in detail. However, they did not know that Manison already had information about the Soul Swapper and knew what trick Aesop had fallen into. Manison had no intention of stopping Modo's battle plan. He even planned to cooperate until the end. Aesop had once been a member of the Ancient Ones, but he had long since left the organization. The Ancient Ones were mainly composed of those with long lifespans, and the beyond grade, as were only the leaders. Not all of the members were beyond grade, as there were many people like Aesop who were very weak but had special abilities. Although Manison knew Aesop, they did not have much of a friendship, so he did not mind sending Aesop to his death. In this regard, he had the same interests as Modo. Using Aesop's death to plot against Black Star might force him to violate the peace treaty of the advanced civilizations. This way, it would greatly damage Black Star's reputation and destroy the great image that the three universal civilizations had built for him. This was exactly what Madison wanted to see, so he was willing to cooperate. However, this was just icing on the cake. Madison's main goal was still the Soul Swapper. Aesop is currently in my hands, so he must have come into contact with the Soul Swapper within a certain range. By checking his whereabouts, I can roughly determine the search range. By comparing the records, I can find the Modo civilization's secret fleet that transported the Soul Swapper. The one controlling Aesop's body now should be someone from the Modo civilization. Maybe I can use hypnosis to ask. Madison's mind raced. He did not know that the Soul Swap twins had already escaped. In his mind, the Soul Swapper should be being transported back by the Modo civilization's fleet, and the direction of his search had already deviated. Sometime after the spaceship that transported Aesop left, another fleet visited this dark red, desolate planet. Its outer armor had the Black Star emblem engraved on it. In the command room of the main ship, Han Xiao, Ames, Fu Ding, and the others gathered. This fleet was led by Han Xiao himself. It's this planet. It's exactly the same as the prophecy, and it's also one of the locations that Fu Ding, Harrison, and the others chose. Han Xiao looked down at the surface of the planet. Rhodey's prophecies were sometimes accurate, but what he gave was basically key information. At Han Xiao's request, Fu Ding and the others, who had the advanced luck glow, randomly chose some coordinates in the search area. Han Xiao focused on investigating the parts that overlapped. Although he had not obtained any clues yet, Han Xiao was still confident in this method. What he did not know was that he had almost stopped Aesop several times. This method was indeed very effective. In a sense, luck was the one that was truly invincible. Detect this planet for me. Report any abnormalities. Han Xiao waved his hand, and spaceships immediately left the team and flew around the planet. They used all kinds of detection devices to detect the planet without any blind spots. The normal detection results were fed back on the screen in front of Han Xiao. There did not seem to be any abnormalities. However, after a while, a spaceship suddenly sent back some shocking information. Reporting to the Legion commander, we have discovered an extremely weak high-energy radiation reaction in a desert. The source is quite scattered and buried a few meters underground. Should we start digging? Dig. The surveillance screen quickly switched to the perspective of the spaceship. The traction device at the belly of the spaceship stirred the sand and sucked out pieces of charred metal fragments. They looked like mechanical parts that had been blown up. Reporting, the radiation source has been found. Data analysis is in progress. Analysis complete. This should be the remains of some kind of space capsule. It was blown up by a high-energy cannon. The molecules were affected by the energy and left behind a certain amount of high-energy radiation. It's gradually weakening. In a few days, the remaining high-energy radiation will completely disappear. Looks like we're not late. Han Zhao's eyes lit up. If they were a few days later and the energy radiation dissipated, they would not be able to detect this fragment. Now that they had this thing, not only could it be used as a medium for Rhodey's prophecies, but it could also be used as a trigger for Bold Explorer. One could see the future, and the other could look back to the past. Soon, this pile of space capsule fragments was sent to Han Xiao and the others. Han Xiao picked up one of the fragments, looked at the burn marks on it, and said in a low voice, "That's right. It doesn't look like it was attacked. It looks more like it was deliberately destroyed. They probably didn't want to leave any clues for us." Unfortunately, he failed at the last step. We're really lucky. Clenching his fingers and holding the fragment in his palm, Han Xiao activated Bold Explorer. Ripples appeared in his vision, and the scene in front of him changed instantly. He saw a space capsule fall from the sky and smash onto the surface of this planet. The hatch opened, and a figure in a protective suit walked out and slowly walked away. Although he could not see his face, he felt that this person was most likely Aesop. Time seemed to have been shortened. Not long after, A spaceship suddenly appeared above the space capsule and shot out two explosive energy beams, blowing the space capsule into pieces. The image stopped there. Han Xiao shuddered and returned to normal. This video was very short, but it revealed a lot of clues. This is indeed the space capsule that Aesop left behind. Then, a spaceship suddenly appeared and destroyed the clues. It means that it's here to pick him up. Han Xiao recalled the appearance of the spaceship in the video. It was not a common model, but a high-speed spaceship known for its hyperdrive speed. It was very expensive, and not everyone could afford it. Philip, coming home. Master, please give your orders. Search all the people and organizations in the Shattered Star Ring that have light-grade shuttles. Don't let any of them go. Also, mark the organizations with strongholds near this area. Huh? Philip blinked his big eyes and said with a pitiful expression, "That's a huge amount of data. It takes up a lot of computing power." Han Xiao glared at him. Then, why aren't you making the best use of your time? Philip sniffled, took out a progress bar from his pants, and placed it beside him. He then summoned a big box filled with papers, jumped in, and started searching. The progress bar started moving at the same time. After a while, the progress bar finally reached its peak. Philip's head popped out of the box, spat out a mouth full of paper, and held a piece of glowing paper in his hand. He puffed up his face and said angrily, "Humph! Found it, Hum. Take it away. Take it away. You're the only one who spends a lot of time." Han Xiao rolled his eyes, switched to the quantum network, and accepted the search results. A huge amount of data flowed into his brain like a tsunami. Han Xiao's brain capacity and computing power were like a dam, easily blocking the impact of the data flow. He did not feel any discomfort and quickly browsed through it. A total of 31 matches. Let me see who they are. Han Xiao quickly filtered through the data in his brain, and in less than 2 seconds, he had memorized all of them. Only a virtual mechanic could use such a stupid method to lock onto suspicious targets. As long as he had the ability to filter through the entire ocean, finding a needle in a haystack would not be difficult. Most of them were worthless data, but there was an organization that caught Han Xiao's attention. Milled Armed Transport Group. I seem to have some impression of this name. Han Xiao narrowed his eyes and searched through the memory palace in his brain for a while, and the relevant memories surged into his mind. I remember now. This organization seems to be one of the subsidiary organizations of the Mecha Empire that was exposed in my previous life. Han Xiao's expression became serious. Although he had not confirmed it yet, his intuition told him that this organization should be the one that transported Aesop's people away. Did this not mean that that Olby * Star Manison was also involved in this matter? Han Xiao did not plan to question the Mecha Empire. It would be useless even if he did. They would definitely not admit it. Various thoughts flashed through his mind, and Han Xiao turned to look at everyone. Get someone to keep an eye on the Milled Armed Transport Group. No, keep an eye on all the organizations that I mentioned later. I want to know their recent movements, but don't alarm them. Follow them closely. Without my orders, don't close the net. He had always known what organizations the Mecha Empire had secretly planted in the Shattered Star Ring. Originally, he did not want to alert them, but now that the Mecha Empire was suspected to be involved in this matter, Han Xiao decided to take measures to keep an eye on all the subsidiary organizations of the Mecha Empire in the Shattered Star Ring. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.